Shalom. This here is part 3 from the book of the 13th Tribe. And like I explained in the previous video, the reason I revisited this subject is because the first video I made, I left alone. And I had music in the background, but it was kind of loud, so nobody can really, you could have to really listen to what I was saying. But people were interested in it. Then someone left a comment and said, could you remake it? So as I went to go remake it, I must say the Most High, because that's where we get ideas from, one or two places. And truth comes from the Most High. So I'm believing that's who this message came from, through his spirit. And as I made this video and this previous video, he put on my heart to not only use Arthur Koestler's The 13th Tribe, but he also had me to use a book called Who is Esau Edom, and also revisit this book here and this book, as well as the sealed portion. So today I'm going to start off with, once again, this book here, The 13th Tribe, and go on from there. And the first comment that I made from the previous video was, it's kind of a dilemma, because when you bring up race, that's a touchy subject. You bring up Jews, that's a touchy subject, you know, and all those type of things. But because us Israelites, we are Shemitic, we're not in violation of being anti-Semitic. And seeking for the truth, if you go and read Webster's 1828 dictionary, it tells you about race. Get a chance to go look that up. You can go online, Webster 1828 dictionary, pull up race, and then pull up an origin, aboriginal or origin. And in origin, it tells you that it's basically commendable for a man or a woman or a nation to look up its origin, because that's commendable, to look up for your most admirable origin. And as I said before, in the quest for looking for my origin, and on this path, you know, I looked the way of the Moor, thinking about all the great things they had done in Europe, which turned out really that's us, Israelites. And then I found out, this is not to offend nobody, but look it up for yourself. Look at the term Moor. It said Moor was a term given by the Romans for the dark complexion of the people. Okay, but that's a name given by the Romans. Indians, same thing. Christopher Columbus in it, given by him. Negro, same thing. African American, they say Jesse Jackson, but Jesse Jackson don't have the ability to run anything other than run the play that he's given. So African American was given by them too. But then we come to our creator, the one who designed it. That's like taking if you had a car or as they call a vehicle, you'll take it to its manufacturer, depending on who that is. And they can tell you everything about that car or vehicle. You wouldn't take a Toyota. You can do that because they can fix it. But if you want it to be fixed right, more than likely you'll probably take a Mustang to Ford. You probably take a Kia. I'm not sure who Kia is made by, so I'm not gonna use that one, because I was gonna say China. It may be true though. Honda. you could take it to these different places, but you'll take it to their place of origin to really get it fixed right. So because the Most High Creator created man, and particularly we're his seed, the Israelites, I'll take his word for it. I'm an Israelite. I'll take being an Israelite over more. Although there's no shame in being a Moor. But I'll take the term Israelite, because that's what he called us, Israel. And that's what this whole story is all about. The 13th tribe. Who is Israel? Who is Esau? And then in the previous video, I just used terms that I read about in the book, Who is Esau Edom? They used the term that, from that standpoint, the author said that the Khazars was Edom, and that the white Christians, that's the term they used, not to offend anyone, but that's the term they use, so I'm going to use it. You can verify it yourself by looking it up, and plus I'm going to read it to you. He said the white Christians is Jacob. And I've proven to you, and others have proven it to you in the previous video, that that's just simply not true. And we're going to go on from there, and we're going to start here at the, if you love the truth, you won't be offended. But if you hate the truth and you want to hold on to the lie, then you'll do what they do, to try to hold on to the lie. But you can't, because the truth is out. So I'm going to start at page 166, section 4, 13th tribe. It says the second catastrophe of that disastrous century was the Black Death. This is during the Renaissance period, which between 1348 and 1350 killed off 1/3 of Europe's population. And in some regions, even 2/3. It came from East Asia via Turkestan, and the way it was let loose on Europe. And what it did there is symbolic of the lunacy of man. A Tartar leader named Janibek in 1347 was besieging the town of Kaffa, now Theodosia in Crimea, then a Genos trading port. The plague was rampant in Jansberg army. So he capitulated the corpse of infected victims into the town, whose population became infected in its turn. And if you allow me, I had a thought pass my head. I listened to another brother who, he's very vocal, and like you said, he cries loud. And I do view him as being a prophet of the Most High. Now, at the same time, and this had nothing to do with him, but when I study or when I hear things, if it's the truth, I love the truth. So whether he's saying a brother is saying it loud or he's saying it calmly, if it's the truth, I love it. But I hear what he's saying too. And the one reason I know that to be true, there's nothing wrong with being a prophet, because that's scripture too. And I have no problem with that, because for the most part of those who have known me, even in the times when I was ignorant, when the Spirit of the Most High comes over me like that, I can get pretty loud myself. Most of my videos, you don't really see it that way, because the Most High has given me more calm approach to it, so I can keep the focus of teaching. But those who know me know that once the Spirit of the Most High come over me, I can get like that brother. I can get like that. So that's why I do understand where he's coming from. And at the same time, I appreciate, and I'm just giving shouts out to all of Israel, man. I'm not here to tear nobody down. And hear what I'm saying when I'm talking for myself. I'm not talking against anyone because I love all of Israel. I just pray that all of Israel will come together and do the work of the Most High in their own lane. Don't worry about if you don't have it like that brother got it. Let me try to make it, you know, I'm kind of comical, so I'm going to try to say it in a way like this. If a brother can talk smooth and you get the truth out of it, praise the Most High. If a brother talks loud and boisterous and you get the truth out of it, praise the Most High. And if you get a brother who can't say nothing else, but he gets so nervous, but he have an intent to praise the Most High and with his word, and all he can do is go, ah! Praise the Most High. If he's done it unto the Most High through his heart. That's the truth. And what I mean by that is everybody don't have the same measure. And some people want to do for the Most High. They just don't have the ability to do it. And if they do this out of their heart and love towards the Most High, that's why I try to make it as simple as possible. If all they can do is go, oh, but they want to do it for the Most High, I believe the Most High will count that as righteousness. I can't speak for the Most High about that, but I'm just saying. If out of their heart they want to really do something for the Most High, but they don't have the ability to do it like that brother or this brother or that sister, and all they can do is go, ah, but they in their heart, they mean it for the Most High. I believe the Most High will account that for them. And man is always judging. Who is man? Man sits around, and this is no attack on anyone, I'm just talking. Man sits around and watch you, who is nothing but filth himself or herself, because all of our righteousness is but filthy rags before the Most High. But they'll watch you and judge you. Who are they? Just keep on trying to trust in the Most High and believing on him. Believe on his son. Be baptized. Repent. Be baptized in his name. Repent for the sins of your fathers and your forefathers, and for your sins and for your loved ones' sins. And seek the Most High in truth. Don't worry about what man does or thinks, because they sinners. Because we all have sinned and fallen short of the glory. We sinners too. But we know it. People that sit around and watch you and judge you, they're sinners, but they don't know they're sinners. That's why they have that judgmental spirit. They need to repent. So, just want to say that. And, I love you, Israel. Love you, Gentiles. Who love the Most High. I love you. Most High said, I love those who love me. And that's why he hates Esau, because Esau don't love him. How do you love him? By keeping his commandments. Esau don't keep his commandments. All they do is cause confusion, murder, mayhem. That's the world. That's why he said he hates the world. Because Esau is the world. That's Esau Edom. Everything in the world is Esau Edom. And I'm not, if I'm led by the Spirit to say what I say, are you led by the Spirit to say what you say? Don't worry about what people around you sitting around watching you, because they shouldn't be watching you like that anyway in your privacy. They should be repenting and getting their lives right. Because we getting our lives right, but what they going to do when the Most High comes and visits them? Well, I was watching and judging your servants, so I didn't have time to try to get my life right. He going to say, depart from me, you worker of iniquity. I never knew you. All right, praise the Most High. So let's continue. Started back off. It said a Tartar leader named Janabek in 1347 was besieging the town of Kaffa, known Feodosia, in the Crimea, then a Genos trading port. The plague was rampant in Johannesburg army, so he capulated the corpses of infected victims into the town, whose population became infected in its turn. Genosi's ships carried the rats and their deadly fleas westward into the Mediterranean ports, from where they spread inland. The bacilli of Pasteurella pestis, forgive me if I mess these names up, I'm just doing the best I can with them, because I don't speak these words every day. The bacilli of Pasteurella pestis were not supposed to make a distinction between the various denominations, yet Jews were nevertheless singled out for special treatment. After being accused earlier on the ritual slaughter of Christian children, they were now accused of poisoning the whales to spread the Black Death. The legend traveled faster even than rats, and the consequence was the burning of Jews in mass all over Europe. Once more, suicide by mutual self-immolation became a common expedient to avoid being burned alive. The decimated population of Western Europe did not reach again its pre-plague level until the 16th century. As for its Jews, who had been exposed to the twofold attack of rats and men, only a fraction survived. As Kutsertera wrote, the populace avenged on them the cruel blows of destiny and set up those whom the plague had spared with fire and sword. When the epidemics receded, Germany, according to the contemporary historians, was left virtually without Jews. We are led to conclude that in Germany itself, the Jews could not prosper and were never able to establish large and populous communities. How then, in these circumstances, should they have been able to lay the foundation in Poland of a mass population so dense that at present AD 1909, it outnumbers the Jews of Germany at the rate of 10 to 1? It is indeed difficult to understand how the idea ever gained ground that the Eastern Jews represent immigration from the West, and especially from Germany. Yet, next to the First Crusade, the Black Death is most frequently invoked by historians as the Deus ex machina, which created Eastern Jewry. And just as in the case of the Crusades, there is not a shred of evidence for this imaginary exodus. On the contrary, the indications are that the Jews' only hope of survival on this, as on that earlier occasion, was to stick together and seek shelter in some fortified place or less hostile surroundings in the vicinity. There is only one case of an immigration in the Black Death period mentioned by Mises. Jews from the Spires took refuge from persecution in Hildeberg, about 10 miles away. After the virtual extermination of the old Jewish communities in France and Germany in the wake of the Black Death, Western Europe remained Judean for a couple of centuries, with only a few enclaves vegetating on expert in Spain. It was an entirely different stock of Jews who founded the modern communities of England, France, and Holland in the 16th and 17th century. The Sephardim Spanish Jews. Let me show you something. Let me see. I was going to show this later, but since they mentioned it right there, let me see if I can find it. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah. This is from the book, The Negro in the New World. See her down at the bottom right there with the orange highlighters? That's who they're talking about. The Sephardim Spanish Jews. It says the Jews are composed, this is on page 27 in the Negro in the New World. The lady says Pinean woman, Negroid Bueb tribe of southern India. The Jews are composed of 3 to 4 separate racial elements. The Asiatic Negroid strain shows itself occasionally in the curly hair, the long eye, and preparations of the skull. The Jewish hybrid with the Negro of Jamaica and Guana produce more strikingly an Assyrian type, Supra. All right. It says the Sephardim Spanish Jews forced to flee from Spain, where they had been resident for more than a millennium. Their history and the history of modern European Jewry lies outside the scope of this book. So that's why I brought some other books and information. We may safely conclude that the traditional idea of mass exodus of Western Jewry from the Rhineland to Poland all across Germany, a hostile Jewless crisis, is historically untenable. It is incompatible with the small size of the Rhenish communities, their reluctance to branch out from the Rhine Valley towards the east, their stereotyped behavior in adversity, and the absence and reference of the migratory movement in contemporary chronicles. Further evidence for this view is provided by the linguistics to be discussed in chapters 7. All right. So if you go back to the first video, part 2, you know, in the sealed portion, it talked about the Renaissance period. And then this brought it up again in the 13th Tribe. So now I'm going to go to the Negro question, part 2, African slave ship that came from Judah, Lee B. Cummings. And then, like I had mentioned before, a lot of our people who wrote books, I'm saying because I wasn't there when they wrote them, I don't know their mindset. All I know is what they wrote. And all these books, the 13th Tribe, the Negro in the New Land, the Jew, a Negro, and all of the books I've read so far, they provide also, as well as Who is Esau Edom, they provide a lot of good information. It's just that a lot of times they're from people's points of view or what history has taught people in the past. And then also a lot of this is it appears to me, because I like I said, I'm not them, but it appears to me a lot of these writings has been done to be combative to the New Age Jew, to prove that we came from Africa. But now, because of we found out that the Book of Mormon really should be called the Stick of Joseph, the seal portion, the Book of Mormon, and all these books really points out that actually we were already here. In fact, as they say, the Negroid or the Negro, who is or the Ethiop, all these terms we already went over, was already here on this side where the sun sets. And we've been here since 600 BC or before. That's why they call us the Aboriginals or indigenous people, the Aborigines. And Columbus called us Indians. We were already here. And that's why, and then from the other standpoint, you get the quote unquote white Christians, as they said, who is Esau, who takes the stance that they're Jacob. But evidence is proven that's a lie too. And see, the interesting thing about this is all these lies is being told is making me believe that none of these people believe in the Most High or that he's coming back. Because wouldn't he know who his people are? So that makes me think they don't believe in the Most High. Because since he created us, he knows who Israel is. That's why he gave all the clues of, he says, Judah is black unto the ground. He said that he had woolly hair. Woolly head means Negro hair. Look that up. You can just basically look that up on the basic dictionary. You know, you ain't got to go too far. Just put in woolly head. And they'll tell you Negro hair. He described himself as a Negro to Apostle John. And John already knew that, but he put it out there for our sake. And then, like I said, in all the books, they'll say, well, skin color don't really matter. And it don't matter to us, really. Like I said, we believed in Jesus when we thought he was Caesar Borgia. But it matters to them because they know the truth. That's why they spent all this time and effort and their finances to create a lie and whitewash stuff. Because if it didn't matter, you could just left Christ like he is in the scriptures, quote unquote, a black man. If it didn't matter. And all their books is always quoting black and white. So why did who is Esau Edom have to paint a picture of that? We're just talking truth right here. We're not talking hate, none of that. We're just talking truth. Why then did, in the book, who is Esau Edom, why did they have to quote, yeah, because Jacob is we the white Christians? You know that's a lie. Christianity is white supremacy. Even that statement proves it. All right, so we're going to go here to the Negro Question Part 2 by Lee B. Cummings. And I'm going to start on page 77. German tapestry, wild men and Moors. Even in this, it says wild men and Moors. It says right here, even the pictures that they use, the Moors are painted as the black people, is using terms, and the wild men are painted as the white people. And apparently these are real images. And once again, this is not to cause strife, anything other than that. This is the truth. It's just that truth. Only thing about truth, though, truth automatically causes strife. That's why the Messiah said, I've come not to bring peace, but a sword. What's the sword? His word. He said, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. And the problem about truth is truth hurts people's feelings who don't want to hear the truth. It says, this is a snapshot of what Black Europeans experienced during the 100-Year War. Same time that the 13th Tribe was talking about, the same time period. 1334 to 1453 in Europe, when these white barbarians, usually they're saying that the quote-unquote black people are barbarians. But they got a picture to go along with his words. That's in Europe. During the 100-Year War in 1334 and 1453 in Europe, when these white barbarians overran Black Europe. That's why it's called the Black Plague, the Black Death, all of those things. The Renaissance period. When they got rid of all the blackness. You think that this image is deep? Keep reading. You will really freak out. This is chapter 9, page 78, the Black Kings and Popes of Europe. Black Russians, King Miriam III. Page 78, Miriam III was a king of Kartli, modern Georgia, a contemporary to Roman Emperor Constantine I, 306 to 337. Kartli was the successor state of the ancient kingdom of Kalichis, made famous by Herodotus' description of its people. They are black-skinned and have woolly hair. That sounds just like the Christ, don't it? Description of himself in Revelations. In the ancient kingdom of Eastern Iberia. According to the earthly medieval Georgian annals and hagiography, Miriam was the first Christian king of Iberia, converted through the ministry of Nino, a Cappadocian female missionary. He is credited with establishment of Christianity as the kingdom's state religion and is regarded by Georgian Orthodox Church as a saint. Page 79, Black Hungarian King Bela. King Bela, on the flight from the Mongols in Hungary, 1241, Széchenyi National Library, Budapest, following 63 recto invest no Klama 404. The picture is a 19th century reproduction from the Chronicum Pictum in Hungary National Library, painting of Emperor Alexis I from a Greek manuscript in the Vatican Library. When the papacy moves from Rome, this is page 80, when the papacy moves from Rome to Avignon, It has been recorded in the history of the Europeans that the papacy did indeed move from the popish estate in Rome to France from the years of 1305 to 1378. This has also been phrased as the Babylonian captivity of the papacy, which is an allusion of the 70-year captivity of Judah in Babylon. Page 81. This is the image snapshot that comes to us from antiquity of the blackness of the Avignon popes that moved from residency from the papal estate in Rome to come under the protection of the black Frankish King Charles V. These black popes had to move to France because of the tide of racial hate that had begun to spread across the continent of Europe. On the hindsight, their departure from Rome signaled the beginning of the coming 100-year race war in Europe. In English, the genocide of the Black European. Black Holy Roman Emperor King Leopold I. Race don't, but skin color don't matter. Race don't matter. Okay. Page 82. Holy Roman Emperor Leopold I, 1640 to 1705. Figure 37, coin depicting Leopold. This is an image of King Leopold I, who just so happened to be a black Holy Roman German emperor. I know these images can be a little disconcerting, but these images had their originations in Europe. In fact, the Habsburg house is the house that the next Holy Roman Emperor will come out of. The most interesting point that I would like to make is the Habsburg of Europe are now white. How that happened will be saved for another book. Well, all you gotta do is look at how it happened throughout the world today. Nothing new under the sun. I said this image was taken off of the coin that was minted by King Leopold of himself, and he made himself depicted as a black man with nappy locks. See the next page of the image of his mother, Maria of Austria. Figure 39, Maria Habsburg of Austria, 1528 to 1603. This is Queen Maria Habsburg of Austria, who just so happened to be the mother of King Leopold I on page 81 and 82, and so far the entire family is black. You see, just for interjection, I do understand that the terms black, white are for designation or descriptive purposes. But in reality, and I'm just speaking for myself, is some far more sinister plan behind that. It's a classification. So I do understand that only way that you're going to be able to pull up and be able to differentiate the difference between an Israeli and an Israelite, oftentimes you might have to put Black Israelite in the heading of a website for them to pull up the proper picture that you're looking for. That's the only way they can really differentiate. But so I'm just interjecting that. Black and white is not a nationality, but people use it for descriptive purposes. I want you to go to the next page to see an image of Maria Habsburg, father, and King Leopold I, grandfather, Charles V. It says, a panel from painting the Larco Museum in Lima, Peru, depicting the Inca emperors. This panel shows the last seven and I believe it says seven because it's cut off, and the subsequent first European emperor in the Inca, Holy Roman Empire, Charles V, Carlos Quinto, as the 15th, it's cut off a little bit, Inca. The painting can be dated circa 1800 because the last two entries are Carlos Tequero, Charles III, as the 24th Inca Emperor, Carlos Quarto, Charles IV, House of Bourbon, as the 25th Inca Emperor. Charles IV reigned as King of Spain from December, and this is March 9th to March 19, 1808, abdicated in favor of his son, Ferdinand VII. That's why I always say the Mayas and the Incas was us. Trying to get it real close so you can see them. This is an image of Charles V that has been recorded and kept in the Larco Museum in Lima, Peru. From left to right, the last image on the right is the true picture of Charles V, the Holy Roman German Emperor, the father of Maria of Austria. He is depicted as a black man. I have enlarged this image on the next page so that you can see the blackness of this king. I want to make this plain to you, the reader. History is repeat with white men and women who risk life and limb to help the so-called Negro. And see, that's why we're justified to say, just like in history, these so-called white men and women who risked their life and limb to help us, the Israelites, they cling to us back then, and they suffered with us. That's why the Most High is going to allow them to reign with us when they cling to us today. And when he returns, he remembers those, and he's going to remember those who are helping us now. And they're going to be in the kingdom with us, enjoying everything that we enjoy in the kingdom, because they suffered with us and fought for us. That's why I said they're going to cling to us. And all those other people who did that even to them, they're going to suffer. They're going to become slaves. They're going to have it done unto them as they have done unto us and to their brothers who helped us. Once again, history is repeat with white men and women who risked life and limb to help the so-called Negro. Abraham Lincoln, John Brown, John Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, and those whites who helped with the Underground Railroad, to name a few. We are grateful to you Europeans who believe in righteousness and the truth. Figure 40, this is an image of Charles V, taken from the painting in Lima, Peru Museum, beginning depicted as a black king. It's really enlarged. You still can't really see it, but see, this is the grandfather of King Leopold I and the father of Queen Maria Habsburg, Australia. The entire family is black. Need I further proof? King Charles, Black Holy Roman Emperor. Charlemagne. See, the 13th Tribe mentions Charlemagne too, right? But Charlemagne was a quote-unquote black man. And that's why Webster probably knew about this, most likely did know about it. That's why he mentioned Charlemagne in the line of the Israelites. a race of kings and nobles. Charlemagne, Carlsruhe Castle, I think that's right. Chess Republic, Charlemagne, Carlos Magnus, meaning Charles the Great, 742 to 814, was king of the Franks from 768 and emperor of the Romans from 800 to his death in 814. This portrait of Charlemagne comes to you from Carlsruhe Castle in Czech Republic. It appears that the brothers of the Eastern Europe had no problem with the truth concerning the black emperors. The symbol on his shield is the symbol two black eagles, and of the black Holy Roman German Empire of Europe. This is a fact, not fiction. The only fiction is in our modern day history books. The real history of Europe is a black history. After the Renaissance period in Europe, it's the same thing that the sealed portion talked about when I read from the part 2 of this video. It explained the same thing. It didn't say black or white, but it's lining up with what he's writing. After the Renaissance period in Europe, everything that was black became white. It does, and even the scripture talks about that. They painted images of themselves during this period. Renaissance period in Europe. Let me see. All right, Maccabees 3 and 48. And laid open the book of the law, wherein the heathen had sought to paint the likeness of their images. Okay. This is a fact and not fiction. The only fiction is in our modern day history books. The real history of Europe is a black history. After the Renaissance period in Europe, everything that was black became white, including the symbol of the Habsburg Empire. The eagle is now painted white instead of black. Page 88. It appears that the French kings, according to the antiquity, ancient history, were black even from the beginning of their reign. This is an image of Charlemagne. And if this guy isn't black, then the sun doesn't rise in the east and set in the west. Holy Roman Frederick I Barbarossa, 1122 to 1190, receives credentials from ambassadors in Venice. Miniature, early 15th century, Musea Corriere Venice. So far as late as the 12th century, the kings of Europe, all being depicted as black by the Europeans themselves, these are not forgeries. Could these be the Jews that were carried off into the captivity by the Vespasian Caesar? This is page 90. I want to make this very clear that these pictures are authentic images of these black European kings. Most of these images are being warehoused at the Vatican Library. You can validate these images from the reference section of this book, The Black Popes of Britain, Ireland, and Europe. Saint Catherine of Siena before the Pope at Avignon, Pope Gregory the 11th, by Giovanni di Polo, 1460. I am of the same opinion that you are. I don't know what to make of the fact that the kings and popes were black. It is bleeping unbelievable, but the images don't lie. You know what intuition showed me back in the day, even when I was ignorant? And even though the thought came to me in a comical way, I said, man, what if the black pope really means that the pope is a black pope? That's what the thought I had. I didn't know this, though, back then. I said, what if the black pope really means that the black pope is the black pope? I don't know what to make of the fact that the kings and the popes were black. It is bleeping unbelievable, but the images don't lie. We have traveled to the 15th century, and the Europeans are depicting their kings and popes as black men. Icons of all saints of British Isles and Ireland. Page 41, figure 41. This image was found at St. Seraphim Church in Walsingham, Norfolk, England. I bet your eyes are jumping out of your head now. Not only do they depict their kings, princes, nuns black, they also present Jesus as being black. I know the images are small, but it is one of the pieces of the puzzle. See below. See blown up image on next page. Page 92. This image was isolated from the image on page 86 and enlarged to show you the black kings and princes of Britain and Ireland. The images don't lie. There was a time when the royalty of Europe was none other than the black man. If you are a Hebrew Israelite and you know Brother Bowie, you can see that a couple of these guys look like him. It says painted panel from the outer right-hand wing of Polypich. The young man wears a crown of a nobleman and carries the red and white military pennant and shield of the Holy Roman Empire circa 1447 from the Wiener Neustadt Abbey, Staffeldam, Vienna, in typical albino fashion. He is claimed to be Saint Maurice. The revelation that you should be getting is simple. The kings, popes, knights were black people, but why would the white Europeans try to hide the truth about the Negro rulership in Europe? It says, the old times have a saying, there's a rat on the line, and I'm in agreement. On page 95, it says, text accompanying this statue at Magdeburg Cathedral. This is the oldest known image depicting Saint Maurice as a Moor. The statue was carved around 1250 and shows him as an armed knight. All right, so this is page 96. The European Black Plague, fact or fiction? What is the real truth about the disappearance of all these black Europeans? Did they die from the result of the so-called Black Plague, or was the black population of the Holy Roman German Empire the Black Plague? These are some statistics from the European wars. France, 100-Year War, 1337 to 1453. At the end of the 100-Year War, 50% of France's black population was dead. German, 30-Year War, 1618 to 1648. Black Holy Roman Empire. Black Holy Roman German Empire versus England, France, now controlled by white Europeans. Russia, Dutch, Sweden, Transylvania, Hesse, Palatinate. When the war ended, 40% of the black German population was killed. Britain's Civil War, 1642 to 1651. Black Britons fought against the white Britons, and 4% of the Britain population died. The Scottish population decreased by 6%, and the black Irish population decreased by 41%. It appears that the so-called Black Plague in Europe was nothing but a race war in which the white Europeans finally evicted the black ruling class from the European continent. The images don't lie. These black kings, popes, and knights existed, and they were wise to keep portraits of themselves, else we would have never known. I said, to solidify my argument, I have in my possession a letter written by none other than Benjamin Franklin himself concerning the existence of the black German European. Title: America as a Land of Opportunity. Author Benjamin Franklin. Year 1751. Subject: Why increase the sons of Africa in America? Title: America as a Land of Opportunity. And since detachments of England from Britain sent to America will have their places at home so soon supplied and increased so largely here, why would the Palatine Boers, Germans, be suffered to swarm into our settlements? So he's saying the Germans were black, and by herding together establish their language and manners to the exclusion of ours. Why should Pennsylvania, founded by the English, become a colony of aliens who will shortly be so numerous as to Germanize us instead of our Anglifying them, and will never adopt our language, our customs, and no more than they can acquire our complexion? Hey, Benjamin Franklin, can you translate what you said into the modern English? Said into modern English? In English, Benjamin is telling you that the Germans were a black race of people. Swarthy European slang equals black. Tiny European slang equals black. Which leads me to add one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionally very small. All Africa is black or tiny. Asia chiefly tiny. America exclusive of the newcomers, wholly so. That's why we were already here. And in Europe, the Spaniards, French, Italians, Russians, and Swedes are all generally of what we call a swarthy complexion, as are the Germans also. The Saxons only accepted who the English make the principal body of white people on the face of the earth. So he said the Saxons were the only white people on the face of the earth. I could wish their numbers were increased. And while we are, as I may call it, scoring our planet by clearing America of woods and so making the side of our globe reflect a brighter light on the eyes of inhabitants in Mars or Venus, why should we, in the sight of superior beings, darken its people? Why increase the sons of Africa by implanting them in America? Benjamin Franklin is not talking about the West African captive. He's talking about the black European coming to America. Where we have so fair an opportunity by excluding all blacks and tinies of increasing the lovely white and red. But perhaps I am partially partial to the complexion of my country, for such kind of partiality is natural to mankind. Benjamin Franklin is asking, why should the blacks of the Holy Roman German Empire be admitted into the 13 colonies, and goes on to admit what nations in Europe were black. Check out the list: Spain, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes. He says that white people on the earth was only a small number, and that the British and the Saxons was that number. What are we to conclude from this section on the white race? This is a diabolical plot by the white powers that be to hide the fact that black kings ruled Europe for at least 1,500 years, from 300 AD to 1800 AD. Further evidence. Now let's examine the mystery in a rational manner. Why would the Europeans blot out OMITT from its history books, the existence of black kings, black popes, black knights, and the fact that black Europeans were shipped into the slave trade to America? Could it be conjectured that these black kings and black popes was none other than Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, who Titus Caesar had taken captive across the Mediterranean in 70 AD? Could it be that the seed of Judah had taken the dominion in Europe, just like the seed did in the Americas and the Caribbeans? One thing is for certain: the blacks of the Holy Roman German Empire were deported to North America colonies per the letter that Benjamin Franklin wrote, and per this particular letter written beneath. Letter: slave ships from Europe. Not to forget the blacks from the continental Europe. So far, we have identified 3 ships which regularly transported blacks from Germany and Holland, where they were gathered for the transatlantic trip. The Jamaica, the Glasgow, the Marlborough, typically entry, ship Jamaica Galley, Rotterdam to Cowes in England, to Philadelphia, 7 February 1738, ship Glasgow Walter Sterling, commander from Rotterdam, but last from Cowes in England, qualified the 9th day of September 1738. Ship Marlborough, Thomas Bell, master, qualified September 23rd, 1741, from Rotterdam, but last from Cowes. Carried a cargo of Palestine mails, electrical Palinate, our country Palatine of the Rhine, a historic state of the Black Holy Roman Empire. They were required to take this oath of allegiance. We subscribers, natives, and late inhabitants of the Palestine, Black Holy Roman Empire, upon the Rhine and place adjacent, has transported ourselves and families into the provinces of Pennsylvania, a colony subject to the crown of Great Britain, in hopes and expectations of finding a retreat and peaceable settlement therein, do solemnly promise and engage that we will faithfully and bear true allegiance to this present Majesty King George II and his successor kings of Great Britain, and will be faithful to the proprietor of this province, and we will demean ourselves peacefully to all his Majesty's subjects, and strictly observe and conform to laws of England and this province to the uttermost of our power and best of our understanding. Note: white Europeans will claim that these were whites, but does demean ourselves peacefully to all his Majesty's subjects sound like an oath Protestant allies or whites would have to take? This is page 100, Black Kings of England. It says the image of King Edward III of England, and he is not a white man, as was taught in your history books. This image is almost 200 years older than the letter that George Washington wrote back to England concerning the arriving Black Europeans to the Americas. Wow. It says King George III. Page 101. You all know the story of the American Revolution, and the reason I know you do is because you have been taught more about the white man and his history than have you been taught of your own, than that of your own. This is a true image of King George III, and he does not look like a white man. In fact, he looks very much like a red bone. For those of you who do not know what a red bone is, it is an adjective, a word that describes something that, in this case, a red bone describes the color of King George III. On the next page is the image of his wifey. His wife, they put wifey. The most beautiful Queen Charlotte of Germany. And this woman is a red bone with nappy hair. See for yourself. Kind of resembles with a picture of George Washington, except he's a quote-unquote black man. Page 104. All right, we'll leave it. We'll leave. That's enough information out for there. So let's see where we at. Said the rise, the 13th tribe. Let's see where we at. So I'm gonna go into the prefix, page I. It says about the time of Charlemagne was crowned emperor. This is in the 13th tribe. So we see that Charlemagne was a quote unquote Negro, King Charlemagne. But let's see what the 13th tribe says. About the time when Charlemagne was crowned emperor of the West, the eastern confines of Europe between the Caucasus and the Volga was ruled by a Jewish state known as Khazar Empire. At the peak of its power, from the 7th to the 10th century AD, it played a significant part in shaping the destinies of medieval and consequently of modern Europe. The Byzantine emperor and historian Constantine Porphyrogennetus, 913 to 959, must have been well aware of this when he recorded his treatise on court protocol, that the letters addressed to the Pope in Rome, and similarly those to the Emperor of the West, had a gold seal worth 2 solidi attached to them, where the messages of the king of the Khazars displayed a seal worth 3 solidi. This was not flattery, but real politic. In the period with which we are concerned, wrote Bury, it is probable that Khan, the Khazars, was of little less importance in the view of the imperial foreign policy than Charles the Great and his successors. The country of the Khazars, a people of Turkish stock, occupied a strategic key position, vital gateway between the Black Sea and Caspian, where the great eastern powers of the period confronted each other. It acted as a buffer protecting Byzantine against the invasions by the lusty barbarian tribesmen of the northern steppes, Bulgars, Magyars, Pachinids, etc., and latter the Vikings and the Russians, but equally or even more important, both from the point of view of the Byzantine diplomacy and of European history is the fact that the Khazar armies blocked the Arab avalanche in its most devastating early stages, and thus prevented the Muslim conquest of Eastern Europe. Professor Dunlop of Columbia University, a leading authority in the history of Khazars, has given a concise summary of this decisive yet virtually unknown episode. Says the Khazar country lay across the natural line of advance of the Arabs. Within a few years of the death of Muhammad, AD 1632, the armies of the Caliphate, sweeping northward through the wreckage of two empires and carrying all before them, reached the great mountain barrier of the Caucasus. This barrier, once passed, the road lay open to the lands of Eastern Europe. As it was, on the line of the Caucasus, the Arabs met the forces of an organized military power, which effectively prevented them from exceeding their conquest in its direction. The wars of the Arabs and the Khazars, which lasted more than 100 years, though little known, have thus considerable historical importance. The Franks of Charles Martel and the Field of Taurus turned the tide of the Arab invasion. At about the same time, the threat to Europe in the east was hardly less accurate. The victorious Muslims were met and held by the forces of the Khazar kingdom. It can scarcely be doubted that, but for the instance of the Khazars in the region north of the Caucasus, Byzantine, the bulwark of European civilization in the east, would have found itself outflanked by the Arabs, and the history of the Christendom and Islam might well have been very different from what we know. It is perhaps not surprising, given the circumstances, that in 732, after a resounding Khazar victory over the Arabs, the future emperor Constantine V married a Khazar princess. In due time, their son became Emperor Leo IV, known as Leo the Khazar. Ironically, the battle in the war AD 737 ended in a Khazar defeat. But by the time of the impetus of the Muslim Holy War was spent, the Caliphate was rocked by internal dissension, and the Arab invaders retraced their steps across the Caucasus without having gained a permanent foothold in the north, whereas the Khazars became more powerful than they had previously been. A few years later, probably AD 740, the king and his court and the military ruling class embraced the Jewish faith. So they became converts. And Judaism became the state religion of Khazars. No doubt their contemporaries were astonished by this decision, as modern scholars were when they came across the evidence in the Arab, Byzantine, Russian, and Hebrew sources. One of the most recent comments is to be found in a work by Hungarian Marxist historian, Dr. Antal Barta. His book on the Magyar society in the 8th and 9th centuries has several chapters of the Khazars, as during most of that period of the Hungarians were ruled by them. Yet their conversion to Judaism is discussed in a single paragraph. With obvious embarrassment, it reads, "Our investigation cannot go into problems pertaining to the history of idea." Read again. "Our investigations go into problems pertaining to the history of ideas, but we must call the reader's attention to the matter, the Khazar kingdom state religion. It was the Jewish faith that became the official religion of the ruling strata of society. Needless to say, the acceptance of the Jewish faith as the state religion of an ethnically non-Jewish people." Read that again. This is important. "Needless to say, the acceptance of the Jewish faith as a state religion of an ethnically non-Jewish people, they not Jews, could be the subject of interesting speculation. We shall, however, confine ourselves to the remark that this official conversion, in defiance of Christian proselytizing by Byzantine, the Muslim influence from the East, and in spite of the political pressure of these two powers, to a religion which had no support from any political power but was persecuted by nearly all, has come as a surprise to all historians concerned with the Khazars and cannot be considered as accidental, but must be regarded as a sign of the independent policy pursued by that kingdom, which leaves us on slightly more bewildering than before. Yet, whereas the sources differ in minor detail, the major facts are beyond dispute. What is in dispute is the fate of the Jewish Khazars after the destruction of their empire. In the 12th or 13th century, on this problem, the sources are scant, but various late medieval Khazar settlements are mentioned in the Crimea, in the Ukraine and Hungary, Poland and Lithuania. The general picture that emerges from the fragmentary pieces of information is that of a migration of Khazar tribes and communities into the region of Eastern Europe, mainly Russia and Poland, where at the dawn of the modern age, the greatest concentration of Jews were found. This has led several historians to the conjecture that a substantial part and perhaps the majority of Eastern Jews and hence world Jewry might be of Khazar and not of Semitic origin. So they're telling you right there, they're not Semitic. And I didn't say that. This is his book. I only read it. But I know I'm Semitic. The far-reaching implication of this hypothesis may explain the great caution exercised by historians in approaching this subject, and they do not avoid it altogether. Thus, in 1973 edition of the Encyclopedia Judaisha, the article Khazars is signed by Dunlop, but there's a separate section dealing with Khazar Jews after the fall of the kingdom, signed by the editors, and written with obvious intent to avoid upsetting believers in the dogma of the chosen race. The Turkish-speaking Karaite, a fundamentalist Jewish sect of the Crimea, Poland, and elsewhere, have affirmed a connection with the Khazars, which is perhaps confirmed by evidence from folklore and anthropology as well as language. There seems to be a considerable amount of evidence attesting to the continued presence in Europe and descendants of the Khazars. How important in quantitative terms is that presence of the Caucasus sons of Japhet in the tent of Shem? One of the most radical propounders of the hypothesis concerning the Khazar origin of Jewry is the professor of medieval Jewish history at Tel Aviv University, A.N. Poliak. His book, Khazaria in Hebrew, was published in 1944 in Tel Aviv and a second edition in 1951. And in his introduction, he writes that the facts demand a new approach both to the problem of the relation between the Khazar Jewry and other Jewish communities and to the question of how far we can go in regarding this Khazar Jewry as a nucleus of large Jewish settlement in Eastern Europe. The descendants of this settlement, those who stayed where they were, those who immigrated to the United States and in other countries, and those who went to Israel, constitute now the large majority of the world Jewry. Page 17. This was written before the full extent of the Holocaust was known, but that does not alter the fact that the large majority of the surviving Jews in the world is of Eastern European, and thus perhaps mainly of Khazar origin. If so, This would mean that their ancestors came not from Jordan, but from Volga, not from Canaan, but from Caucasus, once believed to be the cradle of Aryan race, and that genetically they are more closely related to Hun, Uighur, or Magyar tribes than to the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Should this turn out to be the case, then the term anti-Semitism will become void of meaning, based on a misapprehension shared by both the killers and their victim. The story of the Khazar Empire, as it slowly emerges from the past, begins to look like the most cruel hoax which history has ever perpetrated. Let's see where we at. All right. So let's see what did Genesis 10:1-5 say. Let's see if this is the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Because it says here that they're not part of the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So let's see what the scripture says. Verse 1. It says, now these are the generations of the sons of Noah: Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood. Verse 2. The sons of Japheth: Gomer, Magog, Madai, and Javan, and Tubal, and Meshach, and Tyrus. And the sons of Gomer: Ashkenaz, that's who the Khazars are, Rapath, and Tagarmah. Verse 4. And the sons of Javan: Elisha, Tarnish, Kittim, and Danam. That's Esau right there. So they are related. And by these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. Read verse 5 again. Because they call everybody Goim, which means Gentile. But the scripture calls them Gentile. So they're actually Goim. Verse 5. If you're going to go by truth. By these were the isles of the Gentiles divided in their lands, everyone after his tongue, after their families, in their nations. Then we'll get to a little etymology information here. Israeli, noun. Citizen of the state of Israel, 1948. And that's who they're saying they're mostly there, right? That's who's in Israel right now, them. Citizens of the state of Israel, 1948, from Israel plus Hebrew. National designation suffix also used in English as the adjective, 1948. It distinguishes the citizens of modern state. It distinguishes the Israeli Khazars, if you want to put it that way, from the ancient people who had been known in English since 14th century as the Israelite Negroes. If you want to put it that way. I'm just putting it that way for more descriptive purposes. But we're actually Israelites and they're Khazars. And the etymology online dictionary encourages you to look at the difference. Because it says also, it distinguishes the citizens of the modern state from the ancient people who had been known in English since 14th century. It says, see Israelite. All right. Israelite now, middle 14th century, a Jew. So we're the original Jew. One of the people of ancient Israel. a descendant of Israel or Jacob. See, only a connection they got to Israel is because they were placed in a land that they termed to be Israel and made it a state. That's the only connection they got to Israel. And then they actually became converts to the religion. So the only thing that connects them to Israel is a religion and a landmass. But the Israelites, we're connected to our Elohim. We're his children. We're his seed. And we're his people. We're the ancients. A Jew, one of the people of ancient Israel. A descendant of Israel or Jacob, a descendant of the forefather. From Latin, Israelita. From Greek, Israelites. From Israel, see Israel. Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary. Israel is used in scripture to designate an individual man. The son of Isaac, see Jacob. Or B, his descendants. The 12 tribes of the Hebrews, or the 10 northern tribes led by Ephraim, as opposed to the southern under Judah. And that's where the term Jew originally came from, Judah. Now it's attributed to the whole tribe. And that's how they got in. They said, since it's attributed to the whole tribe now, we'll just sneak in under that type, under that umbrella, and you won't know the difference. But information, even that they produce, encourages you to know the difference. That's why it says it distinguishes the citizens of the modern state from the ancient people who had been known in English since 14th century as Israelites. See, Israelite. Hebrews, designation. From Abraham and descendants, the equivalent of Israelites. So it said when you say a Hebrew, you're really talking about the Israelites, the seed. Hellenist, Jews who made Greek their tongue. With it often adopted Greek ideas and practices. That's why you got Israelites going around right now in fraternities talking about thinking they Greek. Pledging allegiance to Satan, the Baphomet. Acts 6:1 and 9 and 29. And then earlier we talked about how King Charlemagne and different ones, I believe it was, if I'm not mistaken, was talking about how they were light skinned. And the term is really ruddy. A word used to refer to a red or fair complexion. So they even twisted that word up to be red now because the dirt is red. Yeah, some version of the earth is red. But because they twisted up words and definitions now, you can't tell what's from the other. It's because they're called the quote-unquote white man red because they say you can see his blood going through his skin and stuff like that. So ruddy can go anywhere from a little lighter than me, probably, to a light-skinned brother or sister. Compared to a super dark-skinned brother or sister. You light-skinned compared to them, you ruddy. See, it said, and then it shows, tell you why color matters. Because if we didn't know this information, we could be fooled. The original people, when you're talking about Hebrew, it tells you the difference between ruddy. It says, in contrast to the dark skin of the Hebrews. The Israelites. So that lets you know right there that the Israelis are not Israelites. Because the original Hebrew Israelites are dark-skinned people. That's according to their information. And we didn't publish these books. That's why color matters or skin matters. That's why it mattered to them. because they know this truth. That's why they went through that time in history called the Dark Ages and turned it into the White Ages. And this had nothing to do with hate, not on our part. Is it hate that I just bring out the truth? That's hate? No, hate is when you did all that underhanded stuff and changed stuff and made yourself someone you're not. That's hate. And lied to the whole world. That's hate. And then you made religions out of white supremacy. Whitewashing stuff. That's hate. Not only is that hate against us, that's hate for yourself. Because if you superior, as you say, you would be proud to be white. If you're using terms. Because white really means you're righteous and holy, set apart. That's why the Most High going to give you a white stone. Righteousness. If you're righteous. He said his people is righteous. He said, you're righteous because I said you are. He said, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. And every tongue that shall rise against you in judgment shall be condemned. For this is the heritage of the servants of the Most High. And his word does not come back void, is it? No. Because all this stuff they've done against us, which has been a weapon of deception, has been condemned. The truth is coming out. And if you're truly proud of being quote unquote white skinned, just tell the truth about who you are. And tell the truth about who we are. But you won't do that because you know that we're kings and queens. And you know what has happened in the past. And you continue to do it today. But people still are either blind or they just don't want to accept the fact of the truth. It's right here in your face. Jew, originally it denoted one belonging to the tribe of Judah or to the two tribes of the southern kingdom. 2 Kings 16:6 and 25:25. But later, its meaning was extended and it was applied to anyone of the Hebrew race who returned from captivity. Did Khazars return from captivity? As most of the exile came from Judah, and as they were the main historical representatives of the ancient Israel, the term Jew came finally to comprehend all of the Hebrew race throughout the world. Esther's 2:5, Matthew's 2:2. In the gospel, Jews always, in the gospel, the Jews always is the usual term for Israelites. See, that's why I say there's no disrespect to them. Even though we've been disrespected, but there's no disrespect to them because they don't call themselves Israelites. They call themselves Israelis. So in that sense, they didn't lie. But the quote unquote white people did, because in the book about Esau, they said that the white Christian Israelites. And we just read that that's not true. And in the New Testament, Jews, Israelites, and the Gentiles are sometimes contrasted. Mark 7:3, John 2:6, Acts 10:28. The Jew, a Negro, page 94-96. Christ's appearance, woolly-headed Negro, Revelations 1:14-16. Then has Webster's American Dictionary of the English language, race, noun. The lineage of a family or continued series of descendants from a parent who is called the stock. A race is the series of descendants indefinitely. Thus, all mankind are called the race of Adam. The Israelites are of the race chosen seed. Man, I need some water again. I got an itchy throat from, not itchy, but all the talking made my voice dry. It made me want to cough. Excuse me. Thus we speak of a race of kings, the race of Clovis or Charlemagne. And the precept of the chosen seed is Isaiah 41:8. It's a race of nobles, etc. We already see that Charlemagne was a Negro, quote unquote Negro. He's an Israelite. Some people might say a Moor, but right here you see Webster didn't say that. He said Israelite, because he's talking as the Most High would talk. That's where he got it from. A race of nobles, etc. Hence, the long race of Albine fathers come. Seeing that, and then I look at the word hence. Hence says something that they'll say later. Dictionary online. Adverb hence. In the future, used after a period of time. 2 years hence, they might say something quite different. Why is all this stuff pointing out who we are, who they are? They change stuff and what they're going to say later. Why is all this stuff in the dictionaries and everywhere for you to read and get for yourself? Etymology Online Dictionary, Warsaw, Polish, capital Polish, Warsaw, and of unknown origin. Or not now, native of Albania, especially as part of the Turkish military forces. I'm not reading it, I'm just reading some of Albania, medieval Latin name of the country called by its inhabitants. Shapiri, literally land of eagles. Alb, late Old English alb, white linen robe, worn by priests, converts, etc. Let's see. 13th Tribe, page 19. The people under Khazar suzerainty included the Bulgars, Tatars, Ghouls, Magyars, Hungarians, the Gothic and the Greek colonies of Crimea, and the Slavonic tribes in the northwestern woodlands. Beyond these extended dominions, Khazar armies also raided Georgia and Armenia and penetrated into the Arab caliphate as far as Mosul. In the words of the Soviet archaeologist M.I. Artemonov. Let's see, section 3. But who were these remarkable people? Remarkable as much by their power and achievements as by their conversion to a religion of outcasts. The descriptions that have come down to us originate in hostile sources and cannot be taken as face value. As to the Khazars, and the Arab chronicler writes, they are to the north of the inhabited earth towards the seventh clime, having over their heads the constellation of the Plu. Their land is cold and wet, according to their complexions are white, their eyes blue, their hair flowing and predominantly reddish, their bodies large, and their nature is cold. Their general aspect is wild. Let's see what the scripture says about that. All right, let's see what Genesis 16:11-12 says. And the angel of Yah said unto her, Behold, thou art with child, and shall bear a son, shall call his name Ishmael, because Yah has heard thy affliction, and he will be a wild man. His hand will be against every man, and every man's hand against him, and he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren. There's another showing that they were from they have like they're 21 princes or something like that. Let's see. Let me see. Because I think I remember say he'll be a great people too. We can't find it right now, but I'll look it up. According to the complexion, are white, their eyes blue, their hair flowing and predominantly reddish, their bodies large, and their nature is cold. Their general aspect is wild. After a century of warfare, the Arab writer obviously had no great sympathy for the Khazars, nor had the Georgian or the Armenian scribes, whose countries of a much older culture had been repeatedly devastated by Khazar horsemen. All right, let's see. I'm gonna move on to who is Esau Edom. This is by author Charles A. Wiseman, born October 14th, 1931. And I believe he's 89 years old. From Hungary. Who is Esau Edom? The life of history, genealogy, prophecy, predestination, and modern identity of biblical Esau, as is written by Jacob. As is written, Jacob have I loved. This is actually in the book. As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. Romans 9:13. Esau was a, wait a minute. It was something else I want to point out too. It was something, if I find it. Because it also talks about the book of remembrance here in the 13th tribe. Yeah, it talks about the book of remembrance. I can't find it right now though, but let me keep on going. Life. And I didn't write it. I didn't write down everything from the book of who was Esau, Edom, but I just touched some points. It said Life and History of Esau, page 5, section 1. To help answer the questions of who is Esau, Edom, first necessary step is to examine the racial and genealogical history of Esau and his descendants. Life and History of Esau. Esau was the firstborn of Isaac, and thus was heir to the birthright derived from the direct racial lineage of Adam to Noah to Abraham. Thus, Esau was racially an Adamite, a Semite, and a Hebrew, the racial stock of the white race. Right there, that's something that ain't true right there. Well, let me be fair. That's something that had to be looked into. Put it that way. Because actually, the quote unquote white race later on down the line, because according to the new modern world, that may be true. But I was talking about from the beginning. Just as Esau despised his birthright, Genesis 25:34, then he sold it to Jacob. He also despised his race by marrying strange women outside of his race. A strange woman outside of his race. Esau married the daughter of Cain, or a Canaanite. Genesis 28:6, 36 and 2. The daughters of Heth are Hittites. Genesis 26, 34, 27, 46, 36, and 2. The daughters of the Hivites, Genesis 36, 19 to 21, Jasher, 30 and 28. These interracial marriages were a grief of mine to Isaac and Rebekah, Esau's parents. Genesis 26 and 35. The descendants of Esau from these marriages became known as Edomites, or as Edom. Genesis 36, 1 and 9. The Edomites also possessed some Israelite blood by intermarriages in the case of Solomon, 1 Kings 11 and 1. Esau and the Edomites dwell in Mount Seir, Genesis 36, 8 and 9, which God gave to Esau for a possession, Deuteronomy 2 and 5, Joshua 24 and 4. This land was also known as Idumea, Isaiah 34 and 6. The land of Edom, Mount Seir, lies south of the Dead Sea, stretching south to its seaport at Elath, Deuteronomy 1 and 2 and 2 and 1 and 8, and included the ravine known as Petra. Page 8. Herod, also shrewd and unscrupulous tyrant, speaking of Herod, and was despised by Judahites because he was an Idumean and not one of their own stock. So they said he was an Idumean. He was an Edomite and not an Israelite. Speaking of King Herod. Herod hated the people of Judah, and one of his first acts was to execute 45 of the leaders of the old aristocracy to eliminate any rivalry for leadership. Having secured kingship, Herod next destroyed priestly line of Hyrcanus, the lesbian Antigonus, who taunted Herod with his Idumean origin, and asserted that the kingdom should fall on one of the royal family. Finally, he murdered Aristobulus. So you see, you should know them by their fruit. See, he already showing his character. That's what they do. The last of the Aaronic high priests, Herod then sought to affiliate himself with the high priesthood through Mariam, Aristobulus, sister and daughter of a high priest. The temple of God became, in a sense, Herod's temple. We thus find that in the years just before the time of Christ, Judea was controlled by an Edomite faction who usurped the Judite name and land and heritage. Under Hyrcanus, the Edomites were forced to be part of the Judean culture. But under Herod, the Herodian faction had control over the Judean culture and way of life. Confounding the matter is that the fact that some Judites had intermixed with Edomite, Canaanite, and other alien stock at the time they returned from the Babylonian captivity, Ezra 9:1 and 2, Nehemiah 13:3 and 23 through 25. These mixed blood people were also hostile towards the Judean Israelites. The land was not the kingdom of Judah, but the nation of the Jews, Judeans. Historically, the Edomites became known as Jews. That's the Khazars. A term derived from Judea, which was derived from the name Judah, being the royal line of Israel, though they were never of Judah or Israel. Read that again. The land was not the kingdom of Judah, but the nation of the Jews, Judeans. Historically, the Edomites became known as Jews, a term derived from Judea, which was derived from the name Judah, being the royal line of Israel, though they were never of Judah or Israel. Verse 4. Josephus, Josephus Antiquities of the Jews book, Roman numeral, man. I ain't been reading that, so I'm trying to catch it right. Roman numeral 24, I believe it is. Chapter 15, para 2. Etymology Online Dictionary. Once again, Israeli, citizen of the state of Israel, 1948. It distinguishes the citizens of the modern state from the ancient people who had been known in English since 14th century as Israelites. Page 9, the legacy of Esau, Edom. Yet Bible prophecy indicates that the Edomites as a people in history, Bible prophecy indicates that Edom would be an enemy of Israel in the latter times. We find that their only connection to a present day people and religion is the Jews and Judaism. We thus need to trace back the origin of the Jews to see who they are and how they fit into the puzzle of who Esau Edom is. And that's why in part 2 of the video, I went all the way back to the times of Adam, where we find that Satan had a child with Eve, which Adam knew nothing about. And Adam thought it was his son. And then later when he finally got the chance to know his wife, again, they produced Cain. And she said, now I've gotten a man from Yahuwah. Because the first time she got a Satan seed. That's just for consideration. The origins of the Jews. The Jews of today fall within two main types: the Sephardic Jew and the Ashkenazi Jew. And then I said, and if that's what they were going by, I was showing you a picture of the Sephardic Jew. The Sephardim are also known as the Spanish Jews and constitutes about 5% of the Jews in the world. The Ashkenazis are the Eastern European Jews, which were found in Poland, Russia, Germany, and Western Asia. This group of Jews make up 90% of the so-called Jews in the world. And we already read that they said that from their own book, 13 tribes say they're not Jews in terms of being born, being genetically or through being a people of the Most High, through lineage. Many references and historical sources have equivocally identified that the bulk of the Ashkenazi Jews were derived from a people known as Khazars or Chazars in some texts. The original Jewish Encyclopedia of 1905 revealed that the main stock of the Jews came from the Asiatic people known as Chazars or Khazars. Chazars are people of Turkish origin whose life and history are interwoven with the very beginnings of history of the Jews of Russia. Historically, evidence points to the region of the Urals as the home of the Chazars. The Jewish Encyclopedia, Volume 5, 1904, page 41, and the Jewish Encyclopedia, Volume 4, 1905, page 1. Page 10, who is Esau Edom? The Khazars were a nomadic people who had no traces of Hebrewic culture. They had been following a pagan and sex-oriented religion until they had officially embraced Judaism in 740 AD while rejecting Christianity and Mohammedanism. The Jewish author and historian, Arthur Koestler, he's talking about the 13th tribe now, also concludes that the majority of the East European Jews, and hence of world Jewry, is of Khazar and not Semitic origin. They said it, both authors saying the same thing. And neither one of these authors are so-called black people. In the beginning of his book, he notes, the large majority of surviving Jews in the world is of Eastern European, and thus perhaps mainly of Khazar origin. If so, this would mean that their ancestors came not from the Jordan, but from the Volga. I believe the same thing they said in 13th tribe. Not from Canaan, but from Caucasus, and that genetically they are more closely related to the Hun, Vigar, and Martyr tribes than the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Arthur Koestler, the 13th tribe, Random House, 1967, page 17. Page 11, the legacy of Esau-Edom. Kostler then devotes the remainder of his 2055-page book to prove his premise. For instance, a record of a letter by a Khazar king shows that he traced his people to Noah's son Japhet, not to Shem, and to Japhet's grandson, to Gorma, the ancestor of all Turkish tribes. The Khazar government was destroyed by the Slavs of Russia in 1016 AD. So if we go back to this book here, those Khazar Slavs were actually the Israelites, or Israelitish people, or the quote unquote Negroes. Around 1200 AD, the land was invaded by the Hardis of the Genghis Khan. These two events caused large numbers of Khazars to migrate to Poland and Western Russia, forming the cradle of the Western Jewry. There is an abundance of ancient place names in the Ukraine and Poland, which derive from Khazar or Zid, Jews. As the Khazars left their homeland of Khazaria and migrated north and west, they lost their name and became known as Jews. Their Yiddish language and alphabet is not that of the Israelites, Phoenicians, and Greek style, but an amalgamation of Aramaic, medieval German, Slavic, and Russian dialects. The best historical evidence, therefore, shows that the Jews are not descended directly from the Israelites of the Bible, but derive much of their ancestry from the Khazars and other people of Turkish Asiatic blood. The Khazars are also of Edomite stock, and both stocks make up the present-day Jews, as the historian H.G. Wells states. Online etymology dictionary, Asian North, late 14th century, inhabit of Asia Minor, from Greek, Asianus, Asiatic, from Asia. All right, let me move on down. So that's what I interjected there for etymology online dictionary. But I'm gonna continue to what he states. This is what H.G. Wells states. Belonging to or characteristic of Asia, 1630s. From Latin Asiaticus, surname of General Lucius Cern lives Scipio. From Greek Asiatic types. From Asia, see Asia, also compare Asian. As a noun, native or inhabitant of Asia, by 1763 in ancient Rome, Asiatic. Oratosis was florid and overly ornate prose. See page 27, The Negro in the New World. So that's what I showed you. Okay, let's see. And then they also have Afro-Asiatic. That's the same. That's from page 27. Page 13 and 14. Who was Esau-Edom? When Persia overthrew Babylon, King Cyrus issued a decree, 538 BC, allowing the Judites to return to their land and rebuild the temple, Ezra 2, 64 and 65. Some of them had apparently departed to their kinsmen in Europe. However, many of the Judites and Benjamites preferred to remain in Babylon, becoming a part of the indigenous population. Those remaining had intermarried with the Babylonians and Edomites that were in the land and adopted their religion and law. The Babylonian Talmud, which became the foundation for Judaism, these then became the Babylonian Jews. Then many of the people of the land became Jews, Esther 8 and 17. Although they are called Jews, a term which is derived from the word Judah, these people are not true Judites, but became a mixed or hybridized people, consisting of Edomites, Hittites, Canaanites, Judahites, Babylonians, Ishmaelites, Huns, Khazars, etc. When they migrated to their lands throughout the centuries, they retained their Jew or Judite identity, but brought with them the religion of Babylon, Christianity. That's a term that came to my mind right now, because Christianity brings in all of these Babylonian ideals and idols through Catholicism and their off branches and offshoots, which is all world religion. The modern Jew bears the features of the races of Esau intermixed with ancient Hittite and Canaanite head. Because of the Jews' mixed ancestry, history is sketchy as to their origins from Japhet, Esau, or other people in the Bible. However, identification of these persons or tribes can also be ascertained by the characteristics, prophecies, etc. So you should know them by their fruit revealed about them in the Bible. Since Esau, Edom is one of the more predominant figures in the Bible, we will endeavor to ascertain his identification and place in historical and current events by these means. Page 21, Esau hated by God. Perhaps the most unique and unusual attribute possessed by Esau, Edom, is his adverse relationship with God. The script reveals that God never had any love for Esau, as he did with Jacob. And in fact, God hates Esau. So that's how you can relate Esau with the world. He hates Esau and he hates the world. Why is that? Because everything in the world is from Esau. All his tendencies and characteristics and everything he does. That's just me interjecting, but you can know him by his fruit. He did with Jacob, and in fact, God hates Esau. I have loved you, Israel, says Yah. It says the Lord. I'm just going to read it as it is. Says the Lord. Yet you say, how hast thou loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother? Says the Lord. Yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage to waste for the dragons of the wilderness. That God's hatred and anger towards Esau, Edom, is not a one-time event, is conveyed in the fact that Edom was the people against whom the Lord has indignation forever. Malachi 1 and 4. This is no mistranslation, as the same concept is also conveyed in the New Testament, as it was written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. Romans 9 and 13. You can go reference Arthur Koestler's The 13th Tribe, page 135, 1976. National Geographic Magazine, volume 20, volume 17, number 5, page 314, made 1907. Out of 556 important functionaries of the Bolshevik state, 457 were Jews. The Reverend Dennis Fauhay, The Rulers of Russia, page 8, and Malachi 1, 2, and 3. Who is Esau Edom? Location of Zion. The Zion or Jerusalem of prophecy was also to be in captivity, Isaiah 15:2. It was to be in pain and trouble and thus needing to be delivered or redeemed from the hand of its enemies, Micah 4:9-10. This Zion is thus not some heavenly abode or spiritual city. It is to be a physical place on earth. An indication of where this gathering of Israel is. Read it again. It is to be a physical place on earth. An indication of where this gathering of Israel people was revealed in the prophetic promise to David, where God said, "Moreover, I will appoint a place for my people Israel, and will plant them, that they may dwell in a place of their own, and move no more." Note that this planting of Israel is something God will do, not has done. So that's a reference to people always saying that God, the Most High, placed them in a land called Israel in 1948 as fulfilling the promise. And that's why he's making this comparison, and also said when they're placed back into their land, talking about the real Israelite, us, there won't be no more trouble, and there won't be no more wars and all those things. It'll be peace. Based on the biblical identification of the white European people as being God's true and literal Israel people, the nation of America has often been recognized as Zion of prophecy, or the New Jerusalem. So he told some truth there, but see how they interjected themselves? Now, it is going to be some white Europeans, but not the white of skin. It's going to be the white of righteousness. But that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about literally white people. Based on the biblical identification of the white European people as being God's true and literal Israel people, the nation of America has often been recognized as Zion of prophecy, or the New Jerusalem. The following are some of these proofs. So the Book of Mormon, the sealed portion, all of them, it shows that the new Zion will be here in these Americas. It's just that the quote unquote white Europeans are not the people that the scripture is talking about. See, they interjected themselves there. We just found out that the Hebrews are dark-skinned people, and that's from them too. So that's not true what he wrote there. Second Samuel 7:10 and First Chronicles 17:9. See, also Isaiah 49:20. The land Israel was to be gathered into is described as a wilderness or undeveloped land. But with their arrival, it shall blossom abundantly, as God gives its vineyards in abundance. Isaiah 35:1-2, Hosea 2:14-15. Palestine was never a wilderness, and it never blossomed abundantly. God is exactly what happened in America, which had obtained great material blessing and highest living standards. And see, that's what the Christian church believes, because it has a lot of great blessings and living standards. That's because, just for your consideration, us Israelites are here. But the sealed portion goes into the fact that a lot of these blessings that they're getting is from Satan. That's why they pledge allegiance to him. See, all this information, it has a lot of truth in the information. So it's very interesting. It's just that you can see where they've interjected themselves, since you know, and it has been proven that we are the Israelites. Zion was to be a land from sea to sea, Zechariah 9 and 10. Psalm 72 and 8. America is bordered by two great seas or oceans. Palestine is not. In the land where God shall assemble the outcasts of Israel and gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth, Jesus Christ was to be set up as an ensign for God's people. Isaiah 11, 1 and 12. See, they're doing a lot of replacement theology in this book as well. In the state of Israel, in the state, see, they pointed out right here. See, they're actually, what they're doing is they're basically subrogating us out of the picture, and they're attacking the Khazars. That's what they're doing in this book. So in the state of Israeli, then you know that of the 1948 Israel is in the state of Israeli, even the mention of Jesus Christ is prohibited. America is the only nation that was ever legally established as a Christian nation. Israel's restoration to take place in a land afar or very far off, where they would look upon Zion, Isaiah 33, 30-20, Jeremiah 30 and 10. Since this was spoken in Palestine, it could not include Palestine. See, and they're not using the word Israel. They're using Palestine as the true location of Israel. And it's just this word was spoken in Palestine. It could not include Palestine. So that means it's talking about the Americas. So they're telling a lot of truth. It's just that they interjected themselves as white Christians in replacing us. Replacement theology. Zion was to be bountiful in produce and resource as indicated by its wheat, oil, flocks, herds, corn, and a land as a watered garden. And see what they did is they used and I don't know if this for sure. This is my thoughts on it from reading both information. Since the 13th tribe has made it clear that the Khazars are not the people, they're agreeing with the 13 tribes philosophy that they're not the people, but they're interjecting themselves as the people, while yet subjecting the true Israelites. Replacement theology. This is a good prophetic description of America, while Palestine is rather barren in such resources. The New Jerusalem was to be inhabited as towns without walls, for the multitude of men and cattle therein, Zechariah 2 and 4. Old Palestine is full of walled cities. The New Jerusalem was to be a very large land, as indicated with being 12,000 furlongs, Zechariah 2, 1 and 2, Revelations 21, 15 and 6. Thus could hardly be referring to a little Palestine. There are many other earmarks of Zion, of the Zion of prophecy of the New Jerusalem in the Bible, which indicate it was not to be in the ancient land of Palestine. However, all such signs do fit America. Thus, not all prophecies regarding Zion or Jerusalem are in reference to the old land of Palestine, nor are they referring to the heavenly abode. But like the old Zion and Jerusalem is earthly and physical, only America feels the Zion of the Bible prophecy. God has cast out his people from the old land for their apostasy, never to return. So what then is all of the commotion and fuss for having Jews in Palestine? what is the significance of the Jews occupying the ancient places of the Bible? To answer this, we need to understand what is Zionism and who is behind it and why. Page 36, political Zionism. Zionism has its roots in a Jewish Messianic movement that seeks to establish an independent Jewish state through which their Messiah, the Jewish people as a whole, could rule the world. The place that they decided to occupy was Palestine, World War I, in the Balfour Declaration, page 39. The area of Palestine has been under the control and rule of Turkey or its Ottoman Empire, which has existed since 1299 AD, page 38. Why then were the leaders of the Zionist movement insistent upon a Jewish state in Palestine and nowhere else? If we have of Europe would have been offered to these Zionists, they would still rather have been offered to these Zionists. Okay, read it again. If half of Europe would have been offered to the Zionists, they would still rather have been offered to the Zionists. They would still rather have the small barren land of Palestine. Why? It is partly because the Jews are incapable of existing on their own. But in Palestine, they could draw Christian support as God's chosen people, returning to Zion. There would clearly be great political and financial leverage to be had by possessing the ancient high places of the true Israel people. The leaders of Eden did have a plan. As the counterfeit Israel people, they would use their cover to fulfill Edomite goals, not Israelite ones. See, they're calling them counterfeit people and placing themselves in as white Christians, Israelites, when neither one of them are Israelites. And we proved it already in this video and the last one. Zionism is the best advertised of all present Jewish activities and has exerted a greater influence upon the world events than the average man realizes. See, they telling the truth about them, but they just replaced them. They just replaced us with themselves then, same way the Khazars did. Because of the admixture of the religious sentiment, it will be rather difficult for a certain class of people to scrutinize modern political Zionism. They have been too well propagandized into believing that the political Zionism and the return promised by the prophet are the same thing. Now, at the turn of the century, the time was right for a change. A great and significant scene was about to unfold on center stage that was to be in line with God's script, and the Zionist Jews were to be characterized in the script acting out the role of Esau, not Jacob. Reference Encyclopedia of Jewish History, page 120, note 5. The Jewish Encyclopedia, 1905, volume 12, page 676. The International Jew, Dearborn Publishers, 1921, volume 3, page 114. To establish their political goals, the Zionists needed a political change in the Palestinian territory, and there is nothing that can cause political change move more surely than war. The international Zionist bankers and plutocrats thus instigated the Balkan War of 1912 and 13, which brought a revolt against Turkey, weakening it and causing it to lose some of its territory. Reference Encyclopedia Judaisha, 1971, volume 16, page 1039. The Jewish Encyclopedia, 1905, volume 12, page 676. Harper's Encyclopedia of United States History, Harper and Brothers Publishers, 1912, volume 10, Zionists. So on page 139, it said, with pro-Zionist individuals now controlling British affairs, it was essential that Britain prevailed in the war so Turkey could be conquered and its Ottoman Empire overthrown. The international Zionists agreed to bring the United States into the war to help bail out Britain. Through the assistance of his intimate advisor, Zionist agent Colonel Edward M. House, Woodrow Wilson brought the United States into the war in April of 1917. And you know that the United States is a corporation owned by them. The British forces took possession of Palestine from the Turks in 1917. Though the war persisted, the Zionists were pressuring the British to formally issue a declaration that stated Great Britain favored the establishment of Palestine as the national home for the Jewish people. On July 18, 1917, Lord Lionel Walters Rothschild submitted a drafted declaration to Balfour, expressing to him what the Zionists wanted. Later, Balfour addressed the British War Cabinet on the matter, and at the meeting, the declaration was adopted. 2 days later, on November 2nd, 1917, Lord Balfour wrote a letter to Lionel Rothschild, enclosing a copy of the declaration and requesting him to communicate into the Zionist Federation. This became known as the Balfour Declaration, referred to Encyclopedia of Zionism in Israel, volume 1, page 106. The Jewish author Kostler states, that's referring back to the 13th Tribe, that page 44, this is actually in the book Who is Esau? This is not me injecting anything. This is actually in the book that he's referencing, author Kostler. The Jewish author Kostler states that page 44, the right of the state of Israel to exist is not based on the origins of the Jewish people as being Israel, nor the covenant of Abraham with God. Rather, it is based on international law, i.e. on the United Nations decision in 1947 to partition Palestine. The Jews have not possessed the land according to the biblical requirements surrounding Zion. The Israeli state was founded upon systematic program of violence, deceit, murder, and war instigated by the Jews. And this fact alone should dismiss the idea that they are Israel coming to Zion. We should now begin to see the modus operandi of Judaism and Zionism, and how they are not the way of Israel, but of Edom. See, judge a tree by its fruit. The Jewish World Program has used political upheavals and financial power to obtain its objectives. Thus was expressed by the Jewish Zionist leader Theodore Herzl. When we sink, we become a revolutionary proletariat, the subordinate offer of the Revolutionary Party. When we rise, there rises also our terrible power of the purse. Refer to author Kotler's The 13th Tribe, page 223. And Theodore Herzl, The Jewish State, London Paroles, 1967, page 223. Palestine and prophecy. Wherefore I will bring the worst of the heathen, and they shall possess their Israeli houses. I will also make the pomp of the strong to cease, and their holy places shall be defiled. This prophecy was given to Ezekiel about 586 BC. From that time on, the land was destined to be in possession of the stranger or alien, not Israel. Many non-Israelite people have occupied Palestine, and now the Jews, the worst of the heathen, possess it. I'm talking about the Khazars. And by their acts of terrorism and filthy religion, they have polluted the land and have defiled the ancient holy places. Thus, the Jews cannot be Israel. Ezekiel 7:2, 21 and 24. Let's see where we at. All right. Let's continue. When the UN petitioned Palestine, the Zionists, this is page 44 in the book, Who is Esau Edom? When the United States petitioned Palestine, the Zionists made sure that Jerusalem would be an international city, allowing Jews to occupy it. In 1967, talking about the Khazars, in 1967, war was waged so that the Jews could possess Jerusalem, the highest of the ancient places. World Conflict and Adversity, page 49. Esau versus Jacob. Towards the beginning of God's script, the Bible, we read of character Esau making his first appearance on the stage. As he is being born to Rebekah and Isaac, along with his twin brother Jacob. The scene opens with Isaac's request to God on behalf of his wife. Verse 21. And Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife because she was barren. And the Lord answered him, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived. And the children struggled together within her. And she said, if it be so, why am I this? And she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. Here we find that this conflicting and antagonistic relationship between these 2 characters, Jacob and Esau, was ordained by God even before their birth. Rebekah was barren, and it was God who allowed her to conceive, forming Esau and Jacob in the womb, along with the unique and differing characteristics. God purposely made these 2 characteristics different and contrary to one another. The contrasting differences between Esau and Jacob were represented by their struggle and conflict in their mother's womb. This was to set the stage for generations of conflict and antagonism between Esau and Jacob, who were regarded by God as 2 different nations or racial groups. See, there you go again, racial groups, nations, but yet they took away our history, our nation, our racial group, and created us to be something that don't exist. Crayolas, bywords, and everything that they did to us disproves who we are. Because the Most High, everything that they did proves that's what's going to happen to his people. Some translations say 2 rival races. So they put races in there now. Okay. They thus were to be separate peoples, each with their own separate character, roles, and destinies. Two manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. Their struggle also represents the struggle between the kingdom of God and the kingdom of the world. See, that's why I was saying he hates Esau and he hates the world. Because they all interacted. They both belong to each other, Esau and the world. the ways of the world, the fruit of the world. In Genesis 25, 21 to 23, page 50. Here then we find the primary origin and source of world conflicts, international strife, conspiracies, revolutions, and political upheavals. This conflict and struggle was a characteristic that was to exist between the descendants of Esau and Jacob. That is to say, a permanent and continuing conflict between two nations or races of people. This then brings the matter within the scope of international law. Our conflict today lie within this international sphere. So strong is this thing that it becomes a principle itself. See, racism, racial issues, color, nations, all this stuff between these two, he said it's an issue today. And it's the principal issue today. So you can't say race don't matter, color don't matter. Because they didn't invested too much time and effort in it for it not to matter in their scheme of things. Throughout the Bible, the nations of Edom and Israel were in conflict with one another. The struggle between Esau and Jacob in the womb was thus a sign of what was to come in the world on an international level. It was to set the stage for a continued conflict between the ideologies, laws, philosophies, government, religion, and the status of the descendants of these two characters. The Jews versus the Christians. The evidence of God-ordained conflict and struggle between Esau and Jacob can be followed down through history to the present times. World conflicts, wars, persecutions, and social struggles are a result of two different systems generated by the two different peoples, nations, descended from Esau and Jacob. While these are differences among any two races, while there are differences among any two races or nations, among no other two has such an antagonistic and conflicting relationship existed as between the Jews and the white Christian people. So they don't even include the Israelites in that right there. And then later on, they're gonna claim to be the Israelites. Throughout history, these two people have been at odds with one another. It is an ancient conflict. So, in other words, if you claim to be a Christian, I mean, you saying that you are a quote unquote white man or white woman from the standpoint of skin color and characteristics, not from the standpoint of righteousness and purity. According to them, because they already claim what Christianity is. It's a white Christian religion. It said Jews and the white. It said it exists between the Jews and the white Christian people. And in their mind, the Jews, they're talking about the Khazars. They're not talking about us. Throughout history, these two people have been at odds with one another. It is an ancient conflict between the ancient adversaries of Esau, Jews. See, Esau, Jews. Esau, not a Jew. Is not an Israelite. And Jacob, white Christians. See, they done replaced us with white Christians. White supremacy. World conflict and adversity, page 51. The connection between the white race and Christianity and the Jews with Judaism is universally recognized. Universally by the Catholic Church. Judaism, or the religion of the Jews as expressed in their Talmud, is contrary to the precepts of the children of the Bible. They say they're the children of the Bible. What the Bible approves of, the Talmud allows in some form. The table on the following page bears witness to this. The Talmud teaches the opposite laws and principles from that of the Bible, even where a sound and well-recognized moral law of God is concerned. The Talmud in every instant tries to find some exception to it. And don't white Christianity do that? I'm talking about the term Christianity, because they termed it themselves that. They don't keep the law, statutes, and commandments. The exception, deviation, or modification is then justified by the words and teachings of some ancient rabbi, or the sages, as they are called in the Talmud. The Talmud is not a book of godly morals or virtues, ethics, but is replete with perversion and teachings of sexual debauchery. Contrary to the popular belief, the Jews are not followers of Old Testament law, since they are not the people of the Old Testament, the Israelites. In fact, in the book Sanhedrin, section 88b, the Talmud teaches that its precepts and laws are a greater stringency than in respect to those of the Bible. In 1923, Dr. Alfred Luzinski, who had translated the Talmud into Hungarian in 1910, was charged by order of the Public Ministry of Hungary with pornography and with corruption of the public morals. The court found that the horrors contained in the translation of Alfred Luzinski are without exception found in the Talmud. His translations is accurate. So I'm going to move on to page 53 and 54. The Talmud is actually the product of the Palestinian and Babylonian schools, and is generally called the Babylonian Talmud. The Pharisees were adherents of this Babylonian thought, and it was this thought and religion. The Jewish Encyclopedia, volume 7, 1905, page 1, which Christ was also at war against. Christ rebuked them because they rejected the commandments of God, so that you may keep your own Babylonian traditions. Mark 7 and 9. The Jews, like their Edomite, Canaanite, Pharisaical, and Babylonian ancestors, also rejected the commandment of God. This rejection and defiance of God is what Judaism is based upon, as the Jews Bernard Lazar revealed. It is the Jews who originated biblical exegesis, a critical analysis of the Bible, just as they were the first to criticize the forms and doctrines of Christianity. Truly has Dormester written, the Jews was the apostles of unbelief, and every revolt of mine originated with him. Bernard Lazar, Anti-Semitism, Its History and Causes, London, Britain's Publishing Company, 1967, pages 149 through 151. Okay, page 63. Anti-Semitism. The term anti-Semitism has been used by the Jews to counter and conceal God's natural order and plan in the world, an order which has assigned to the Jew the role of aggressor, hater, destroyer, seducer, invader, and corrupter. By simply calling one anti-Semitic, the Jew attempts to put a blame for conflict on the other party. In other words, it is those Arabs and the Palestinians or the Germans that are haters and aggressors, when in fact it is the Jew. The Jew, like Esau, has revolted against God. He not knowing he talking about himself. The Jew, like Esau, has revolted against God's order and are justified who do not act against the Jew in this regard. Thus, it would seem as if the grievance of the anti-Semite were world founded. The Jewish spirit is essentially a revolutionary spirit, and convincingly or otherwise, the Jew is a revolutionist. What we actually have in the world is Esau, who is the hater and aggressor, trying to conceal from the world his identity and innate attributes. If Esau's true identity and traits become publicly known, he would once again be powerless in the world. The Jews have inherited these attributes of Esau and frantically try to silence anyone who revealed them. The Jews admit that the Pharisees and the rabbis were the same kind of teacher. Rabbi A. Cohen, Every Man's Talmud, page 34. Bernard Lazar, Anti-Semitism, Its History, Cause, translated by Britain Publishing Company, London, 1967, page 158. The anti-Semitic charge, along with the hate laws, is a tool the Jews uses in defiance of his offensive, hostile, revolutionary, anti-Christian nature. If it can be insinuated that one charge with anti-Semitism is the hater and aggressor, an emotional response of the master can be directed against the individual, forcing him into their silence or loss of status in society, business, or politics. That's the same thing that when you get to talking about Nick Cannon, who is Semitic and has a right to speak on those issues, but he's afraid to because of the power they hold over his industry and over him to operate in that industry. Ever since the Jews invented the libel charge of anti-Semitism in the 1880s, it has been built up with Jewish money, organizations, propaganda, and lies, e.g. the Holocaust. See, this man right here just said the Holocaust is a lie. Yeah, he said, what's the author's name? So you won't say I said it. Just read it. Yeah, Charles A. Wiseman from Hungary, who is Esau Edom. He said the Holocaust was a lie. The anti-Semitic charge, along with the hate laws, is a tool the Jew uses in defense of his offensive, hostile, revolutionary, and anti-Christian nature. If it can be insinuated that one charge with anti-Semitism is the hater or an aggressor, an emotional response of the masses can be directed against the individual, forcing him into either silence or loss of status in society, business, or politics. And that's the same thing that a lot of the Israelite people, that even though they don't know the Israelites, who call themselves African Americans are irate about with Nick Cannon because he's caught up in that situation. And me personally, I'm just going to tell the truth because they don't own me or rule me. My Father is the Most High. And as long as I tell the truth, I'm pretty comfortable with it. See, that's what they do. They send little innuendos and threats. Both sides. Not only the Khazars, but the quote unquote white people. They say white Christians, because they both holding secrets and lies, and we are the secret. But there's we're not the secret no more though. The whole world knows that we're Israelites. We're the chosen people. Hitler even knew it. And I'm no fan of Hitler. I don't know him and never knew him. But he put it out there back when he was alive that we are the Israelites. So ever since the Jews invented the libel charge of anti-Semitism in the 1800s, it has been built up with Jewish money, organization, propaganda, and lies. Example, the Holocaust. So that now the world is like snake venom, which paralyzes one nervous system. Even the mention of the word Jew is shunned unless it is used in the most favorable and positive context. Example, being God's chosen people. This stigma exists even with the conservative and right-wing individuals and organizations. They speak of world problems, conflicts, and wars as being caused by the by the communists or the Zionists, or by those international bankers or the CFR and trilateral organizations. Even though there is clear evidence that the Jews are behind all of these movements and organizations, the Jewish connection is avoided like the bubonic plague. Reference Bernard Lazar, Anti-Semitism, Its History, Causes, page 149. The word anti-Semitism was first appointed in 1880. The Jewish Encyclopedia, volume 1, 1901, page 641. The end result is that those who fear being labeled anti-Semitic will never be effective in exposing the root of the problem in the land. No such fear existed in Jesus Christ, who boldly spoke against the Talmudic Pharisees face-to-face in public gatherings. He specifically pointed out their characteristics, stating they were hypocrites, a generation of vipers, full of dead man's bones and of all uncleanness, blind guides, a wicked and adulterous generation, full of iniquity, serpents, murderers, and of their father, the devil. And then we go back to part 2 of this video. That's why I started off in the Garden of Eden. And it points out that outside of Adam, there were some people existing out in what they call the world, because Adam and Eve lived in paradise as immortals. And Satan was always gang stalking them. They didn't know it, but just watching them. Came into the garden, slept with Eve, taught her how about sex, had a child with her and called him Benelli. And then Moses himself gives an account of that same Benelli, where Moses calls him Ahiah. Because Satan always said he wanted to be like the Most High. That's why I don't call the Most High Ahiah. And then also in the book that I have, the Book of Remembrance, the Book of Enoch, it points out that the name I am that I am is not the name that Moses was given by the Most High. That's something that was placed in there by Satan. So that's why I don't trust to call the Most High Ahiah, because the Ahiah that Moses talked about is Satan's son. or Satan. That's just for your consideration. And I'm not going to tell you that you can't call him a higher. I'm just putting out information. Because of Christ's exposure of the traits and the ways of the Talmudic Jews, you should know them by their fruit. They cannot easily continue in their ungodly practices. These Jews thus sought to kill him, John 8:37 and 40, and eventually succeeded. In today's thought controlled world, Jesus Christ would be considered a hater, an anti-Semite. This is clear, for the Jews have made it known that the New Testament is the most anti-Semitic book ever written. Judaism denotes the Jewish faith in its extravagant form of blind attachment to rites and traditions and national exclusiveness, thus must have been prevalent in the time of Christ because of his constant exposure of their formalism and self-assumption. And because of John's gospel, the Jews is used as synonymous with exposures of Christ and his teachings. An expert from the Popular and Critical Bible Encyclopedia, Volume 2, 1901, page 999, a factual comment as revealed here would be printed today out of fear of being labeled anti-Semitic. The key, if the Jew is to live in Christian society, his true native and attribute must be concealed and censored from the masses. Thus, the Jews, see right here, see basically, this is how the Most High is bringing the final war right now. It's the white Christian versus the Jew. That's what this war is about. This final war. That's what that's why a lot of the brothers is teaching about that the tribulation of today is really not against us. It's going to be their tribulation. So they're going to fight each other over who is the chosen people. And neither one of them are. We are the chosen people. Thus, the Jews state that throughout history, he has been the one persecuted. Yet the cause of that persecution, anti-Christian and offensive Jewish traits, is never told. And when these traits are concealed, the cause and nature of much of the problems, conflicts, conspiracies, and wars in the world are also concealed. See, he's saying that they're the problem in the world. Speaking on these problems, Henry Ford stated, half of the confusion of men meet their efforts to account for the world is due to their ignorance of just where is the Jew. He is always a key. But if the key is disguised as something else, how can it be used? Here we now have the key as to the origins and source for so much of the conflict and friction that is so prevalent in the world. Two of the main characters acting on stage in the world have two diametrically opposite value systems and spiritual disposition, and the twain shall never meet. To quote the Jew Maurice Samuels, I suspected from the first dawning of the Jewish self-consciousness that between you, Gentiles, white Christians, see right there, he's calling them the white Christians Gentiles. But they're saying that the Jew said that. So what they're saying is he lying on them when he said they Gentiles. But they are Gentiles. To quote the Jew, Maurice Samuels, I suspected from the first dawning of Jewish self-consciousness that between you Gentiles, white Christians, and us Jews lies an abridgable gulf. The Jews, being an offshoot or extraction of Esau Edom, have a deep-seated hatred for God's people, the white Israelite people, and their God. Edom's role in the script calls out for this hatred to be acted out in the world. They cannot and will not deviate from their role. Reference the International Jew, Dearborn Publishing, page it's a G 1921, volume 2, page 245, and Maurice Samuel's You Gentiles, 1924, page 9. Who is Esau Edom? The dominion of Esau, page 74. The historical rule of the white race was the yoke of Jacob on Esau's neck, which Esau was prophesied to break someday. And this yoke could only be broken by Esau gaining dominion or rule. One of the brothers, I ain't gonna put his name out there, but he always quotes, your fathers have inherited lies. So they might really believe this stuff. Page 76. The Jewish writer Samuel Roth explains the Jew's economic role as follows. We see the Jew then in business as promoter, moneylender, salesman par excellence, the author and chief and instigator of a system of credit by which a nationwide usury rises like a golem, a created monster, with a million hands on a million throats to choke the honor and the freedom of movement of a hard-working people. See what the Most High said about it. Psalms 15, 1 through 5. And I'm just going to read it as it says. Lord, who shall abide in thy tabernacle? Who shall dwell in thy holy hill? He that walketh uprightly. That's true. That's true rightness. And righteousness and worketh righteousness. That's what it really means to be white. I'm not talking about skin or anything like that. That's what it really means to be white. He that walketh uprightly and worketh righteousness and speaketh the truth in his heart. That's whiteness, purity, holiness. He that backbiteth not with his tongue, nor doeth evil to his neighbor, nor taketh up a reproach against his neighbor, in whose eyes a vile person is contemned. But he honoreth them that fear the Lord. He that sweareth to his own hurt and changeth not. He that putteth not out his money to usury. See, but that's what they do. Even the quote-unquote white people do that. Nor taketh reward against the innocent. He that doeth these things shall never be moved. The Jews become money lenders in most of Europe, lending to nations, princes, merchants, informers, any that would need money. The word Jew became synonymous with money lender or usurer. The real key to the Jews' economic rule over nations and making of usury and credit more effective is their international banking dynasty. The scheme began in England when the Jews, led by Rabbi Manasseh ben Israel, were allowed to return to that nation in 1657. By conspiring with Oliver Cromwell. With their foot in the door, the international Jews approached William of Orange and promised to help place him on the throne of England in exchange for helping them secure a charter to establish a Bank of England. A Jew named Jacob Henriquez was instrumental in this endeavor. William and Mary accepted the crown in 1689, but to justify the bank charter, war began between France and England were now instigated. The constant wars which followed William's accession had compelled the king to borrow large sums from London. Research, go to Samuel Roth, Jews Must Live, 1934, page 123. And the Jews were expelled from England in 1290 by King Edward I. When the plan for readmission of the Jews was discussed, anti-Jewish prejudices had become strong, and council would not consent to it, 1654. Also, the mercantile interests and the clergy united in opposition to the admission of the Jews. It took Cromwell 3 years to overcome the opposition and secure the admission of the Jew. The Jewish Encyclopedia, volume 4, page 366 through 68. All right, let's see what it said. Merchants, Jews, out of these loans sprung forth, page 77, national debt, which was destined to grow eventually by leaps and bounds from less than $1 million of pounds up to so many hundred millions, that all thought of every pain it is now given up. The second result was the organization of a company for the management of this colossal debt, the Bank of England. The Jewish merchants secured the bank charter in 1694. From that moment on, Esau, Edom, had financial dominion over all of Britain. As directors of the bank, they could regulate the gold standard and consolidate the national debt, even impose direct taxation on the people as a means to secure loans. With control over this bank, the Jews would create wars, business panics, and political upheavals that would affect the entire world. The existence of today's banking system, that is, the taking of money on deposit and loaning it out at interest, actually gave rise in modern times through the endeavors of the Jewish Rothschild family. The financial career of the Rothschilds is the key to the history of Jewish banking in the 19th century. The plan adopted by him of establishing branches in the more important European capitals over which he placed his sons was followed by other Jews. Banking, houses. The influence of Jews on banking was due to the preliminary advantage given to them by their international position. Other central banks were established in Europe, which would also branch out their operations. Warburg founded a bank in Hamburg in 1798. Jewish bankers played an important part in the development of joint stocks, banks, Ludwig, hamburgers. Stock banks, Ludwig, Bambergers, and Hermann Mark were among the founders of the Deutsche Bank, 1870. Among other important Jewish banks was the Banque de Paris, 1872. Jewish bankers played a leading part in the foundation of Banca Commercial Italia and the Credito Italiano. Leading private banks in Hungary were of Jewish origin. The Jewish objective was to make all money, loans, credit, and financial transactions worldwide become subject to their centralized control. C. D.H. Montgomery, The Leading Fact of English History, Boston, Ginn and Company, 1893, second edition, page 288, and the Jewish Encyclopedia, 1902, volume 2, page 492 and 93. The other Jewish families that adopted the Rothschild plan of establishing local banking and branches in European cities included the Lazards, Stearns, Speyers, Sigamas, Warburgs, and the Loeb family. Esau's crowning achievement in gaining financial dominion over Jacob occurred with the establishment of the Federal Reserve Act, the Act of 1871, which was signed by Zionist stooge. Architect of their plan was the Edomite Jew Paul Warburg of Kahn, Loeb, and Company. The legislation created a corporation, the Federal Reserve Bank, whose stock is owned or controlled by Jewish banking firms. With the Federal Reserve System, the Edomites have the ability to create their own money, Federal Reserve notes, and bank book entries, merely by loaning it out into circulation, and thus can manipulate loans and interest rates. The white people of America are now subject to their Edomite master, who created their money, allowing them to buy and sell with it. See, they didn't say that the Israelites were subject to it. They said the white people were. Said the white people are America, of America. Or you can say the white people in America, because we're the Israelites, we're the Americans. The white people of America are now subject to their Edomite master, who created their money, allowing them to buy and sell with it, but monitors how much they receive, W-2 forms, etc., and taxes them for the privilege of that use. The IRS is but a collection agency for the Edomite Federal Reserve banking system. See Encyclopedia Judaica, Volume 4, Banking and Bankers, page 174 and 76. Did I lie? You might not like what I said, but I just read what he said. Can't have it both ways. The IRS is but a collection agency for the Edomite Federal Reserve banking system. Then I also see controlling stock in the Federal Reserve System is owned principally by 8 international Jewish banks, including Rothschild Bank of London and Berlin, Lazar's Brother Bank of Paris, Israel Moses Seif of Italy, Warburg Bank of Hamburg, Lehman Brothers of New York, Kahn Loeb and Company of Germany and New York, Chase Manhattan Rockefeller Bank of New York, Goldman Sachs Bank of New York. If some alien force wished to covertly take over a nation, no surer method could be devised than the supplanting the nation's money with their own. As President James Garfield said, whoever controls the volume of money in a country is absolute master of all industry and commerce. This is the situation that exists with the Jewish Federal Reserve Bank. The descendants of Esau have truly, the descendants of Esau have truly brought about the mark of the beast. This is interesting right here. The descendants of Esau have truly brought about the mark of the beast, so that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, Revelations 13 and 16 through 17. No one in the nation can buy or sell unless they use Jewish script, Federal Reserve notes, credit cards, bank checks, etc. Let's see what the sealed portion says about that. Sealed portion, 23, 6 and 7. And the descendants of Benelli, that's the one Moses called Ahiah, and the descendants of Benelli were the more intelligent of those who did not give heed unto the words of Adam. And in their Benelli, in these Benellites stirred up the Canaanites. So that's what we're dealing with right now. That's why I went back there. The Benelites, you can say as the Khazars, just for consideration, stirred up the Cainites. That's the so-called white people. Cain killed Abel. Abel is the Israelite that they want to get out the picture so they can fight between themselves over it. But they're in cahoots with each other. They don't want to create the secret societies. And Benelli, Satan's seed, crowned Cain, the so-called white people, as the king of King Mahan, once he got rid of the righteous seed, which was Abel. But the Most High, because he is our Father and he interacts in the affairs of men, created another righteous seed. In replacement of Abel. And it wasn't until that new son was born that the priesthood was resumed. The order of Melchizedek was resumed. But we got back to the matter of nothing new under the sun. So you see who the Khazars are, and you see who the quote-unquote white people are. But we also have some other races, including brown-skinned people that are in that Cainite division. And we have some Israelites who have sold out and joined the Cainites. To anger against the sons and daughters of Adam, who do not belong to their families and to their communities. For the Benelites had for many years established the mean of trade and industry with the Cainites, even that the Cainites performed all of the labors for the Benelites, so that these did not have to work with their own hands. Precept, seal portion, 32, 37, 43, 45, and 48, and 56, and 60. Talks about the mark of the beast. And also you're talking about the Revelations. And they just told you what the mark of the beast is. After the Edomites, or the Edomite Jews had established their private banks in the individual nations, their next step was to solidify their financial control at the international level. At the close of World War I, or World War II, at the close of World War II, certain Jews spearheaded the Bretton Woods Conference in New Hampshire, July 1st through 22nd, 1944. Articles of agreement were proposed for establishment of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and a World Bank. This agreement was based on the plan of the Jewish economist Harry Dexter White Harry D., 1892 to 1948, U.S. economist, born in Boston, Massachusetts in 1938. White was made director of monetary research. His monetary proposals were accepted as the basis for Bretton Woods Conference, attended by representatives of 44 nations. Jews have always controlled the operations of IMF and World Bank. Through them, interest rates, loans, currency, volumes, and international trade practices are regulated, making the economic activities of every nation subject to the Jew by by way of these financial devices. Their objective, right in the beginning. Yeah, their objective of a new international economic order was fulfilled with these international devices. Thus, Esau now has economic dominion over Jacob like never before. Encyclopedia Judica, Volume 16, 1971, page 481. Getting close there. Government and political control, page 80. The opposing traits and attributes of the two characters, Esau and Jacob, would indicate that their society, form of government and culture, would be equally as different and contrary to one another as the two characters are. The principles of Hebrew law, justice, and government were adopted by white European people and never by the Jews. So if it was adopted by the white European people, who are the Hebrews then? Well, we know, but I'm just I'm just putting it out there. Who are the Hebrews then if you had to adopt it? Go and tell the truth. The principles of Hebrew law, justice, and government were adopted by white European people. But I thought you was the white Hebrew Israelites or Christian Israelites. The principles of Hebrew law, justice, and government were adopted by white European people and never by the Jews. Thus, in white nations, we find the individual rights of property, a system of free enterprise, local control of government, and biblical laws and judgment implemented. But Jews have historically promoted principles of democracy, socialism, communism, all contrary to the sound biblical principles of self-government. America has always known as a republic, but that changed when the Jewish pawn Woodrow Wilson became president. The U.S. Constitution refers only to Republican form of government. Not until the administration of Woodrow Wilson, 1913 to 21, was the U.S. commonly referred to as a democracy. The New Standard Jewish Encyclopedia, 5th ed. Geography, Wigger, etc. Doubleday and Company, New York, 1977, page 541. Edom's One World Government, page 85. Jacob, as inheritor of the birthright, had the right to have dominion. See, that's what it's all about, the birthright right there. That's why they put themselves in there. But right there, where they just told us that they adopted the Hebrew way. So how can you adopt it? But then you are the people. You are Jacob. See all the contradictions. Jacob, as inheritor of the birthright, had the right to have dominion in the earth, and was promised that his descendants would spread throughout the earth. Genesis 28:14, becoming a multitude of nations. Genesis 48:4 and 19. Edom's plan to overcome this is by creating a world government under its control. Once all nations become democracies, socialist states, or communist regimes, it is an easy step to get them to come under a one world control. Excuse me. To attain this world government, some means must be procured through which it can be administered and enforced. That vehicle is the United Nations. It is the chief instrument in the world government. The United Nations, like the League of Nations, was a Jewish plan and concept. It was promoted and supported by Jews, and it serves Jewish and Zionist goals. a couple of years after the establishment of the United Nations, the Jew David Ben-Gurion stated, "Our Jewish policy must be the unity of the human race. The world is divided into two blocks. We consider that the United Nations ideal is a Jewish ideal." Times Magazine, August 16th, 1948, page 25. When a nation becomes, this is page 86, when a nation becomes a member of the United Nations, it surrenders its sovereignty and its independent status. See, we're still, consider this. Read what they just said. When a nation becomes a member of the United Nations, it surrenders its sovereignty and independent status. That's why us Israelites are not a part of the United Nations. They know what they're doing. And through ignorance, we're trying to become part of it. We want to be recognized. That's not the Most High's plan. The Most High said he's going to set up his own enzyme. I'm just reading what they said. When a nation becomes a member of the United Nations, it surrenders its sovereignty and independent status. So we're still sovereign. They might not recognize it, but the Most High does. That's why we hate it. And all those nations that are under them in cahoots against one another, as the scriptures have said, that we can no longer be a nation, but they don't have no control over that. So the Most High is with. He's soon to come. It now becomes subject to the international law of Edom. See, and they even have to go by the eternal laws. They know them. That's why they have not included us in that. But everybody under their banner is in cahoots against us. Because that's Esau, Edom. And is not free to decide his own destiny. So they're not free to decide their own destiny, but they don't have no control of us because our destiny is in the Father. And his Son is soon to return, as it is said in the sealed Book of Mormon, when the sky is going to be covered with an entourage of chariots, UFOs, coming back for us. Man, the Most High is great. The Holy Spirit revealed this to me as I was reading this. This was made evident through the events of the Iraqi War, Desert Storm. The United States did not act according to the Congressional Act or pursuant to its Constitution, but to a UN resolution. Right here it says America, but you should say United States, the corporation. America is not a sovereign nation. It is subject to the dictates of the Edomite-controlled United Nations. So United States, United Nations. The world program that it follows is a Jewish program. Precept, Psalms 51 and 12. The mighty God, even Yah, has spoken and called the earth from the rising of the sun into the going down thereof. Out of Zion, the perfection of beauty, God has shined. Our God shall come and shall not keep silence. A fire shall devour before him, and it shall be very tempestuous told about him. And then a brother said he wants you to have a little fire in your voice when you talk. Let me talk, elder. My brother. He shall call the heavens from above and to the earth. Let me judge his people. Gather my saints together unto me, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice. And the heavens shall declare his righteousness, For God is judge himself. Selah. Hear, O my people, and I will speak. O Israel, I will testify against thee. I am God, even thy God. And I will not reprove thee for thy sacrifices or thy burnt offerings to have been continual before me. I will take no bullock out of thy house, nor goat out of thy folds. For every beast of the forest is mine, and the cattle upon the 1,000 hills. I know all the fowls of the mountains, and the wild beasts of the field are mine. America is mine. That's my country. That's my land. That's my soil. If I were hungry, I would not tell thee, for the world is mine and the fullness thereof. Oh, praise the Most High. Lift him up. Lift him up. Abba, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, and deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, because you just said it, and the power, and the glory. And this is forever. And it is so. Blessed be the name of Yah. Shalom unto the Heavenly Father, who is Shalom. Jewry's political outlook is world rule in the material sense. Jewry is an international nation. It is this and nothing else, which gives significance to its financial education, propagandist, revolutionary, and immigration programs. At the forefront of this one world plan is war against nationalism. See, that's why they don't want us to be a nation, but it's not time. We are a nation, but he said he's gonna cause them to know that we are his people. They're gonna acknowledge it. So don't be anxious at this time, because this ain't time for them to acknowledge it. Everything's going according to plan. Which is the greatest threat and obstacle for the Jews to confront in their ultimate plan. Thus, propaganda against national independence and sovereignty is always promoted by Jews. No other group of people would be motivated against nationalism, since each has always had his own nation. However, the Jew is a citizen of the world. One world dominion has long been a plan of the Jews. This is prevalent in their Zionist movement, which is part of the Jewish ideal of ruling the world. This plan was made explicit by the Jew and CFR member James P. Warburg in testifying before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee on February 17, 1950, stating, "We shall have world government whether or not you like it. The only question is whether world government will be achieved by conquest or consent." The Jew Baruch Levy, back in the mid-1800s, had clearly expressed the ultimate goals of the Jews. See the International Jew, Dearborn Publishing Company, Volume 3, 1921, page 178. Page 87. The Jewish people as a whole will be its own Messiah. He said there's many antichrists. I'm talking the true Christ. I ain't talking about Caesar Borgia or none of those people or none of those images. The black Messiah, quote unquote, the Israelite Messiah, the king of the tribe of Judah, line of the tribe of Judah. The Jewish people as a whole will be its own Messiah. See, for there are many antichrists. And would attain world dominion by the dissolution of other races, by the abolition of frontiers, the annihilation of monarchy, and by the establishment of a world republic in which the Jews will everywhere exercise the privilege of citizenship. In this new world order, the Jews will furnish all the leaders without encountering opposition. The government of the different people forming the world republic will then be possible for the Jewish rulers to abolish private property and everywhere to make use of the resources of the state. Thus will the purpose of the Talmud be fulfilled, in which it is said that the Messianic time has come. The Jews will have all of the property of the world in their hands. The Jew don't await. Let's read it again. The Jew don't await a Messiah or believe any ever existed. Rather, they are their own Messiah, and that Messiah they believe will one day rule the world. The time of Jacob's trouble. Jacob's loss of dominion and Esau's gaining of dominion over him marks the start of the period prophesied in the Bible as the time of Jacob's trouble. Jeremiah 30:7. So when did the time of Jacob's trouble start here in America? On the Americas. 1492, when Columbus came. That was the time of Jacob's trouble. That's when it started. Jacob's loss of dominion and Esau's gaining dominion over him marks the start of that period prophesied. In the Bible as the time of Jacob's trouble. See, and to be correct, earlier on, it started earlier than that. But I'm talking about here in the Americas for the 10 tribes. Started in 1492. Esau's dominion could only exist at the expense of Israel's religion and status. That's why they tried to take away our status and our true religion. Our religion is keeping of the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. This dramatic scene has brought about a system like the Mystery Babylon, described in Revelation 17:5. Unlike captivities and afflictions of the past, this captivity is not physical or obvious, but a mystery due to the covert modes of control. Like gang stalking, targeted individuals. That's covert. It is what some, and actually they behind that too. It is what some have called the invisible government. The shadow government. It would actually take several volumes to fully disclose or discuss the Jewish domination in which Jewish influence and dominion exists over the white Christian nations. Example, religion, media, culture, laws, and education. The manner Israel's rules and dominion on the earth was to weaken, page 89, when transgression of God's laws. The stranger shall be the head, and you shall be the tail. Deuteronomy 28:44. We thus to ask who has control of the man over who in this world. It is the white race that is losing its power, that has been put under financial bondage to the Jew monetary system. It is the white nations. Germany, America, actually the United States Corporation, England. See Barak Levy from the letter to Karl Marx, La Revue de Paris, page 574, June 1st, 1928. That the Jews have tricked into giving them money, aid, and technology to support their anti-Christian and bastardized state in Palestine. And it is our political leaders who are controlled by Jew advisors and lobbying groups. This is all due to the legacy of the two races. Two great forces have been struggling for dominion in the world. The Edomite Jews have gained the dominion and have broken the yoke of the white race from their necks, as was prophesied to happen with Esau and Jacob. The Century Magazine, January 28, 1928, volume 115, number 3, page 347 and 48. Then you got page 99 in who is Esau Edom. It says, there thus is a plan or conspiracy to kill all the white Christian people from the planet. That's what they think the Jews is trying to kill them, according to this author, because they got the replacement theology. In reality, it probably is true. Esau's motives for killing Jacob, and I said probably is true because he said it. I don't know. I ain't making no statements. I'm just reading what they say. There thus is a plan or conspiracy to kill all the white Christian people from the planet. Esau's motives for killing Jacob are all part of a plot in God's script. This is why we often see aggressive and harmful actions being staged against the white race. Grandeurs of illusion. That's just a thought popped in my head. The possessors of the birthright. They say the possessors of the birthright. It now becomes clear that the birthright plays a control role in understanding many of the conflicts, wars, adversaries, adversities, and problems in the world. Let's see what the sealed portion has to say, or the sealed Book of Mormon. This was section 82. It says, therefore, the priesthood presidency of the Son of God belongs rightfully to the literal descendants of the chosen seed, to whom the government, to whom the covenant promises have been and will be made, in this same order that has always existed, will exist until the end of the world. So we see that the Hebrew Israelites are a dark-skinned people from antiquity. That's not white people. And then they acknowledge that the Khazars not even Jews. You intelligent, you've heard what I've read. And if you be truthful to yourself, you see that the Khazars, not the Israelites, and the so-called white people or white Christians are not Israelites. That's why color matters. And that's why the Most High made it prevalent throughout the scriptures and all the scripture about his dark-skinned people. And then he made it more clear. He said with the woolly hair, the Negroes, who they say are Negroes, we Israelites. So if you be true to yourself and true to righteousness, if you say you're righteous, both authors have provided, all the authors have provided a lot of good information, but it's just that the truth now has been exposed, so we can see that the lies boldly sticks out off the pages. So, Jew and Gentile, I love you both. I just love the truth more. Read. I'm gonna read the back of the cover of this book here, and see what it says. It says this book. This is author Kostler, the 13th Tribe, and I'm ending on this. It says this book traces the history of the ancient Khazar Empire, a major but almost forgotten power in the Eastern Europe, which in the Dark Ages became converted to Judaism. See, they converts. Khazaria was finally wiped out by the forces of Genghis Khan, but evidence indicates that the Khazars themselves migrated to Poland and formed the cradle of Western Jewry. To the general reader, the Khazars, who flourished from the 7th to the 11th century, might seem infinitely remote today. Yet they have a close and expected bearing on our world, which emerges as Mr. Kostler recounts the fascinating history of the ancient Khazar Empire, a major but almost forgotten power in Eastern Europe at about the time that Charlemagne, and we've seen that Charlemagne the Emperor was an Israelite, in the West. The Khazars' sway extended from the Black Sea to the Caspian, from Caucasus to the Volga, and they were instrumental in the stopping of Muslim onslaught against Byzantine. The eastern jaw of the gigantic pincer movement that in the west swept across northern Africa and into Spain. Thereafter, the Khazars found themselves in a precarious position between the two major world powers, the Eastern Roman Empire and Byzantine, and the triumphant followers of Muhammad. As Mr. Kostler points out, the Khazars were the third world of their day, and they chose a surprising method of resisting both the Western pressure to become Christians and the Eastern to adopt Islam. Rejecting both, they converted to Judaism. In the second part of this book, The Heritage, Mr. Kostler speculates about the ultimate fate of the Khazars and their impact on the racial composition and social heritage of modern Jewry. See, they're modern Jewry, and that's not through ancestry. That's through conversion and religion. For our Israelites, our true religion is Shabbat in Zion. He produces a theory that sounds all the more convincing for the restraint with which it is advanced. Yet, should this theory be confirmed, the term anti-Semitism would become void of meaning. As Mr. Kostler writes, it is based on a misapprehension shared by both the killers and their victims. The story of Khazar Empire, as it slowly emerges from the past, begins to look like the most cruel hoax which history has ever perpetrated. So, to my Israelite family and my Gentile family who shall come in among us, who shall come in under the Most High's law, statutes, and commandments, Shalom.